The story begins in the icy darkness of a cave, where a girl cut a monster in two with a single blow. Then she fell to the ground in front of a pedestal on which a red crystal glowed. Chi-Chi's eyes widened in panic, her body frozen in fear. The flames engulfed the medicinal crystal, illuminating the space with a dazzling glow. The light from the stone, bearing the mark of evil, spread throughout the gloomy space. The terrifying creatures crept closer, their eyes full of predatory lust. The monster lunged like lightning, without hesitation. She blocked the blow, but another was already behind her. The beast pierced her through and through, leaving her in shock and dizzy. Bright red blood gushed from her mouth, pain torturing her body to the limit. She collapsed onto the cold stone floor, surrounded by ferocious beasts. Chi-Chi, dying, with a glazed look in her eyes and a heart full of regret, called her brother's name. The image of Wu-Lu appeared like sunlight, echoing his tender promise. Suddenly, the monster's bloodied mouth loomed over her, ready to devour her. In desperation, she thought she would break the promise she had made to him. The scene shifted. In the magnificent city, Wu-Lu slowly walked out of the store, carrying a bag. A sudden call from behind made Wu-Lu stop. He turned around and saw a smiling Qin-Ji, who asked about Chi-Chi's return. Wu-Lu replied cheerfully. He then continued, inquiring about the health of Qin-Ji, a D-rank explorer, and his plans to go into the void. Qin-Ji replied that everything was fine, said goodbye, and promised to stop by later. Wu-Lu smiled in agreement. When Wu-Lu walked away, someone complained about his miserable life compared to Wu-Lu's, and about how lucky he was to have a sister in the 7 stars. But Qin-Ji objected, saying that they had never even helped Chi-Chi, who was dying of hunger, and that only Wu-Lu had offered her help. A vivid memory came to mind. Wu-Lu had once given food to a starving, wandering girl. The man listened, but remained offended. He claimed that Wu-Lu lived off his sister, and he asked, what would the guy do if something happened to his sister? In the golden twilight, the small apartment where the brother and sister lived seemed warm. Wu-Lu put the bag on the table and sighed wearily after his long journey. Glancing at the clock, he realized he was late with dinner and hurriedly began cooking. With practiced movements, he chopped the ingredients, methodically preparing dinner and moving on to the stove. Soon, a hearty meal was neatly arranged on the table. Everything looked appetizing, and Wu-Lu smiled with satisfaction. But inside, he felt a twinge of anxiety. He glanced at his phone. It was 7:20 p.m. Chi-Chi still hadn't returned. She must have stayed late at work, he muttered, looking at the night city through the window, and then slumped over the cold dining table. Suddenly, his phone began to vibrate continuously. It was an unknown number calling. Startled, he reflexively answered. A calm voice from the Adventurers Association asked him to confirm his relationship with Chi-Chi, alias Shining Light. Wu-Lu answered, his voice firm, but his heart was pounding wildly. They reported that she had died in an S-rank dungeon, her death confirmed 2 hours ago. Wu-Lu staggered, as if struck by thunder from the heavens. In the quiet night, his agonizing cry tore through the air. The plate fell, shattering on the floor, and the cold sound echoed through the room. The mechanical voice demanded secrecy for security reasons, promising help and payment within a month. The call ended. Wu-Lu froze, dropping the phone from his hands, his trembling lips whispering his sister's name. Memories flooded back. Chi-Chi tugging at his sleeve, asking if she could call him Big Brother. Wu-Lu responded with a gentle smile, the memory like a flicker of sunlight in the past. Another time, seeing her injured, he asked why. She simply said that someone had dared to speak ill of him. Once, she boldly promised to return soon. She hugged him, playfully insisting that he prepare a delicious meal for her return. Wu-Lu gently asked her to take care of herself. But there was a discrepancy. She only mentioned the A-rank dungeon, but the call mentioned the S-rank. Incidents in S-rank dungeons were always thoroughly investigated, especially those involving the 7 Stars organization. But this time, her death was reported directly after only a few hours, so the situation was unusual. Wu-Lu lowered his head. His tear-filled eyes dimmed in the dim light from the window. That light reflected on a photograph where the brother and sister were together. 5 days later, in the Adventurers Association building, Wu-Lu appeared in the reception area. A cold man asked him the purpose of his visit. With a stern face, he stated that if it was about the Shining Light, they had already notified him. It was Lin Feng, the leader of the Clear Sky branch. Wu-Lu met Lin Feng's gaze and firmly requested to be registered as an adventurer. Lin Feng froze, a look of surprise flashing in his eyes. Rubbing his forehead wearily, he said calmly, "This path is dangerous, and the main character has neither qualifications nor abilities." Wu-Lu remained silent, his gaze unwavering. Lin Feng sighed quietly, noting that, according to the law, The family of an adventurer could join the ranks even without any skills. Hearing this, Wu-Lu immediately confirmed his intention, his calmness surprising Lin Feng, who reluctantly nodded in agreement. Turning to order the secretary to process the application, she replied with complete seriousness. Wu-Lu, slightly surprised, showed determination in his gaze and nodded in gratitude. Before leaving, Lin Feng gently advised that the doors here were always open if he needed anything. Wu-Lu turned around, nodding slightly in appreciation. Then the door slammed shut with a heavy echo. Lin Feng watched him leave, feeling a vague sense of unease. At the reception desk, the staff handed Wu-Lu his ID card. He quietly thanked them as he scanned the details. Name, male, no abilities, no rank. He clutched the card tightly, a burning determination smoldering inside him. A memory surfaced. After Chi-Chi's team escaped from the dungeon, they tried to return for her using a special item, but were unable to do so. Wu-Lu angrily insisted that she had only mentioned the A-rank dungeon. His companion frowned, puzzled, saying that they had been sent to the S-rank dungeon. Since everything was sealed, perhaps she had hidden the truth so as not to upset him. Wu-Lu froze, his heart tightening as if he were being strangled. He carefully put the map away in his coat, silently vowing that it was not a glorious sacrifice. He did not believe she was dead. Pulling his hood up and hiding his face, he strode away. His eyes were cold as steel, filled with determination to uncover the truth about Chi-Chi's death. Meanwhile, elsewhere, in front of the entrance to the A-rank dungeon, a team of adventurers gathered at the starting point. One bold blonde guy said he'd take the lead. His teammate teased him, saying he'd cry when he saw the monsters, and the jokes continued, hinting that it was safer to stay in the rear. Wu-Lu stood aside, silently watching the lively exchange. Then the team entered the dungeon, leaving Wu-Lu's support group waiting outside. Blonde Shu began to speak in the tone of an experienced veteran. 3 decades had passed since the dungeons first appeared, and he had been working for more than 10 years, but he still hadn't gotten used to it. Another calmly agreed, hinting that it wasn't easy to adapt. Suddenly, a timid newcomer approached them and asked if they should continue waiting. Blonde Shu recognized the newcomer and learned that he had just joined logistics. The other explained that they would wait until they killed the gatekeeper beast before entering. Blonde Shu interrupted sharply, saying that long explanations were unnecessary. They would understand once they were inside. Purple-haired advised the newcomer not to pay attention to Shu's usual rudeness. Then Blonde Shu noticed Wu-Lu and asked directly, "New face, just arrived?" Wu-Lu briefly confirmed. Blonde Shu was surprised and asked again in amazement. The purple-haired man gently instructed Wu-Lu to follow them and behave like the others, avoiding recklessness. Suddenly, a deafening roar interrupted them, causing everyone to startle and turn toward the source of the sound. A blood-curdling scream echoed from the bloody cave. The man in the blue hat panicked, asking if they should go in, but Blondie Shu shouted that entering meant death. The bespectacled man asked what was wrong with the training department. The newbies didn't know the basics. The newbie explained that there had been no basic training this year due to anomalies in the association. These explanations made everyone fall silent with concern. A sarcastic voice criticized the incompetence. Wu-Lu remained calm, knowing that he had not missed training. It simply wasn't there while the two continued to argue. Usually, only combat adventurers of rank D or higher could face the beasts. Logisticians, civilians, or E-ranks like them were just temporary labor. But if someone wanted to contribute, a sharp cry pierced the air. "Hey, you there, come here." Blonde Shu frowned, urging the others on. The work had begun. Elsewhere, purple smoke billowed from the corpse of a slain beast. The bodies of 2 hunters lay nearby, no longer quite alive. The stench of death made the group nauseous, both men and women alike. After a while, the beast's body dissolved into a foul, slimy sludge. The man in green couldn't take it anymore and doubled over, vomiting. The man with spiky hair, his face red with rage, shouted curses at the newcomer, but a strong hand squeezed his shoulder, stopping his impulsiveness. The woman with platinum hair neatly gathered in a bun gently reminded him that he was new and needed to remain calm. She turned to Blonde Shu's group. She sternly urged the experienced members to keep their cool and work responsibly. When she finished, the hunters left, and Blondie patted the timid man on the shoulder, ordering him to get to work. The man grumbled about unfair accusations, while Wu-Lu, standing aside, coldly assessed this act as an insult to the deceased. The newcomer protested loudly that this was his first time encountering such a situation, and that it was not intentional. Wu-Lu's gaze remained icy. That was why they killed him. Someone behind him asked curiously how Wu-Lu knew so much, being a newcomer. He calmly replied that he had heard stories, then fell silent. his gaze lost in memories. Chi-Chi appeared in his thoughts, her face sad. She told him about the death of a newcomer the day before, disturbing Wu-Lu. She explained that it had happened during training, but the arrogant fool had been ambushed. The support team vomited on the corpse, and the friend of the deceased, in a rage, killed the culprit. Despite her attempts, she was unable to prevent the tragedy. Wu-Lu was furious about the murder, but Chi-Chi just shook her head helplessly, saying that combat teams often despise support groups. Blondie Shu's voice brought Wu-Lu back to reality, urging the newbie not to hesitate. The person called out reacted by pointing to a pile of uncollected corpses and the monster's corpse. Blonde Shu picked up a bucket, joking that he didn't expect Wu-Lu to be such a real newbie. Considering his previous calmness, Wu-Lu did not respond, lost in heavy thoughts, inwardly irritated by the annoying uncle. A loud voice explained that in order to clear the dungeon, they needed to destroy the core. That very thing. However, to get to the core, you first had to kill the guardian monster. They begin to decompose 30 minutes after death, but for the guardians of the core, time only begins after the core itself is destroyed. Blonde Shu, pushing the cart, said that monster corpses were worthless. The curious newcomer asked why. The bespectacled man immediately replied that corpses cannot be taken out of the dungeons, so no one needs them. He went on to explain that defeating the guardians could yield weapons or equipment. In some cases, skill books could be obtained. Sometimes even rare items could be found. Blondie Shu and the others summed up. For details about the rewards, contact the killer. Since the dungeon closes 30 minutes after the core is destroyed, they had to go. A circle of light opened up. The man in glasses said goodbye, ordered a retreat, and promised payment in a few days. He gently warned that the support role did not guarantee safety. Self-defense skills were necessary. He emphasized that speed is critical for survival. While the newbie gloomily complained that the job did not meet his expectations, the young novice Wu-Lu stood silently, watching them leave without a word. Wu-Lu clenched his fist, silently vowing to become stronger. A day later, a voice brought Wu-Lu out of his reverie with a question about his experience in the dungeon. Wu-Lu replied coldly and briefly. It was scary and dangerous there. Lin Feng smiled awkwardly, hinting at the value of the treasures. Wu-Lu said quietly, "Nothing is worth dying for." Lin Feng stared at him, a shadow of concern flashing across his face. As they went inside, he muttered, noting Wu-Lu's resemblance to his sister. They went inside. Lin Feng continued talking. He expressed his suspicion, sensing something strange about Wu-Lu. Although he knew that Wu-Lu had inherited a large fortune, Lin Feng couldn't understand his motives. Wu-Lu admitted that he wanted to escape from his sister's shadow and the rumors. He didn't want to be seen as a freeloader in his own and others' eyes. Lin Feng sternly warned that the inheritance would soon be revealed, and then its heir would become a target. Then he praised Wu-Lu's independence and introduced someone important. In the dim sunlight appeared a gray-haired man with an authoritative air, speaking like thunder. It was Charlie Lee, 37, a veteran coach, clearly irritated by the challenge. The branch president introduced Chi, the coach appointed by Wu-Lu, the strongest in the branch despite his rough appearance. Wu-Lu watched in amazement as Charlie grinned broadly. Chi stepped closer, stroking his beard, his mocking tone dismissive. Was he supposed to be a babysitter? Karuto quietly remarked that Wu-Lu was the brother of Shining Light, pausing the atmosphere. Hearing this, Chi reluctantly agreed, grumbling and warning that this was the last time. Karuto sincerely asked him to take care of the main character. Chi snapped back, ordering Wu-Lu to follow him quickly. They stood facing each other, the tension growing as Wu-Lu introduced himself, but Chi abruptly cut him off, asserting his dominance. Despite Chi's surprise, Wu-Lu calmly confirmed his use of special inheritance rights from the title of high-ranking adventurer. Chi, skeptical and with a sharp gaze, asked if Wu-Lu truly understood the weight of this privilege. Wu-Lu calmly nodded, stating that he fully understood. He explained the adventurer ranking system, where the 7th level was the highest. This was the 7 stars. Those who belonged to this group enjoyed maximum benefits even after death if a successor was appointed in advance. A small part of these benefits, the opportunity for self-development, was valued the least. But the guy chose the 5th point, training from the association to improve his qualifications. Chi strictly demanded a decision from Wu-Lu, but he did not grasp the essence. The question made the atmosphere tense and quiet. Chi sighed as he explained the 3 main forms of training: attack, defense, and reflexes. He quickly manipulated the electronic board, saying that Wu-Lu needed to see it to understand. Without hesitation, he knocked the robot down with a punch, demonstrating attack training. Then he took boxing blows to the body, describing defense techniques. Finally, he dodged laser beams, demonstrating his speed and evasion. Turning with a gleam in his eyes, delighted with his demonstration, he looked at the boy and asked Wu Lu which path he would choose. After a moment's thought and looking at all the holes from the attacks, Wu Lu raised his head and firmly decided to focus on defense. The next morning, under a clear sky, he began training in the park. Wu Lu, drenched in sweat, ran like Forrest Gump through the beautiful green landscape. After struggling, he stopped, gasping for breath, completely exhausted. His face turned pale. Nausea set in, and he began to doubt the effectiveness of Chi's training. Recalling their conversation, Wu Lu remembered how Chi had praised his choice of defense as wise, patting him lightly on the shoulder. But instead of encouragement, it felt like his shoulder had almost been torn off. Charlie had mocked how his peers often chose attack or speed for self-defense. His smile faded, replaced by a chilling remark that they had all died. The harsh words and icy stare made Wu Lu shiver. The atmosphere became heavy. Charlie lowered his voice and said that this should make Wu Lu think. Although he was free to choose his own training path, he had a duty to put effort into physical improvement. Wu Lu, surprised, asked if Charlie wasn't the coach. Charlie laughed, mocking his weak endurance. He slapped Wu Lu hard on the back. For now, he'd better not waste his time. His encouragement sounded like an order. Try harder. Wu Lu slid to the ground, exhaling, quietly accepting reality. Charlie raised 2 fingers, his gaze stern, setting a deadline of 2 months. He coldly warned that even blood ties would not help if he did not meet the standards. When the memory faded, Wu Lu, still stunned, looked as if he had been pulled out of an abyss. Thinking this, he forced himself to run again, refusing to stop. Days of grueling training without mercy began. Now Wu Lu focused on the computer, typing non-stop. He clicked to open a secret document. Details appeared about a rare S-rank dungeon creature, the dark wind insect. With control over wind and water, its defense was nearly invulnerable. Wu Lu looked up, his heart heavy as he realized why his sister had always stopped him from going on adventures. A month later, he appeared at the store carrying raw meat. 2 workers whispered to each other, puzzled by Wu Lu's frequent visits to the luxurious beef resort. Ignoring the gossip, he lived simply and trained constantly, not just running. He also climbed endless stairs like a kung fu panda, and he added strength training to improve his physique. A month later, his transformed muscular body attracted attention. Suddenly, someone appeared at the door, surprising Wu Lu. It was Qin-ji. Qin-ji studied him, then laughed as he entered without ceremony. Sitting down, he teased Wu Lu about his changed figure, which was almost unrecognizable. After a brief silence, his eyes shone with undisguised pride. Suddenly, he quietly asked when Chi-Chi would return. Wu Lu calmly said that, according to the association, she was on a mission with no return date. Noticing Qin-ji's hesitation, Wu Lu offered to share if necessary. Qin-ji said bluntly that Wu Lu's recent actions were attracting attention. Some people didn't even have bread at home, but he was buying meat every day. Still calm, Wu Lu stated that he had nothing to hide, with his sister's support. Qin-ji's tone lowered as he mentioned the bad rumors about the 7 stars, about the accident involving him. Wu Lu frowned, insistently asking for the source. Qin-ji said it came from a casual conversation among high-ranking adventurers. Qin-ji fidgeted, his eyes troubled, asking directly what had happened to Chi-Chi. Wu Lu paused, then said softly that, if something had happened to her, he would not be able to live so peacefully. The air between them became awkward and quiet. Qin-ji realized that his words were inappropriate and forced a smile. Wu Lu gently reassured him. Qin-ji stood up to leave, refusing to stay for a meal, and hurriedly departed, leaving Wu Lu alone in the empty house. He quietly opened his contacts, looking at the missed call. Wu Lu dialed the number that had been calling him all this time. The person on the other end answered grimly, scolding him for ignoring dozens of calls. He got straight to the point, asking what they knew about his sister. The caller laughed mockingly, prompting Wu Lu to quickly hang up on the prankster. Annoyed at being interrupted, he was met with Wu Lu's cold warning against nonsense. Under his stern pressure, they confessed that one of the 7 stars had died, the identity was unconfirmed, and the association was covering it up. Then the guy paused and asked, "Did something happen to Chi-Chi?" Wu Lu did not answer directly, only threatening to ask this man's sister for information if necessary. Before he could respond, the other person hung up, grumbling that Wu Lu had no right to call his sister. In the silence of the room, Wu Lu stared thoughtfully at the photo behind him, his mind in turmoil. He suspected a conspiracy behind Chi-Chi's death. Was it a game of power? Or enemies? The scene changed. He decided to meet with Charlie, as scheduled. When Charlie saw Wu-Lu, he laughed loudly, noting his noticeable changes, prompting Wu-Lu to smile at his success and ask about the results of his training. Charlie confirmed that he had met the minimum requirements, then said seriously that there was good news and bad news. The good news was that Wu-Lu could now focus on one type of training, but he had not yet realized the essence of the bad news. Charlie grinned meaningfully, revealing that the next training session would involve enduring a merciless beating. With that, he darted forward like lightning, striking Wu-Lu before he had time to react. The brutal blow threw Wu-Lu against the wall, cracking the stone. Ali watched as Wu-Lu sprawled out, mocking him that to survive meant to withstand such force. Wu-Lu staggered to his feet, stunned, asking if beatings were really the goal of training. Charlie replied firmly that it was an exercise in endurance, and that to survive was to win. He paused, his eyes cold, emphasizing the cruelty inside and outside the dungeons. The strongest survive. Wu-Lu absorbed every word like a commandment. Charlie summoned the robot, ordering Wu-Lu to dodge without counterattacking, then turned to take a nap. The robot rushed like the wind, its attacks relentless immediately after activation. Wu-Lu dodged precise blows capable of destroying the room. Although fast, faced with such terrifying power, he couldn't help but tremble. Drenched in sweat, he wondered if endless evasion was enough, then dismissed the thought. The robot lunged again. Wu-Lu suddenly remembered Charlie's teaching. As if a spark had ignited his mind, his gaze became determined. This time, he did not dodge. He changed tactics, preparing to block the attacks, deciding not to run. From above, Charlie silently watched as the robot struck the main character with its iron fists. With pride shining on his face, he muttered that Wu-Lu had finally understood. This exercise strengthened both the body and speed. He shouted that defense was not just about muscles, but willpower. Everyone had to understand that. His phone vibrated, displaying the caller's name. Tan Mahun, Charlie answered irritably, complaining about lack of sleep and a busy training schedule. But another person coldly interrupted, reporting that an S-rank dungeon had appeared in the village of Shui-An. Almost the entire village had been destroyed, and Charlie's face became serious as he realized the gravity of the crisis. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Lin Feng was silently studying files. Charlie entered, sat down wearily, and announced that Kazumi from 7 Stars had agreed to cooperate. Lin Feng nodded, praising his gift of persuasion. Charlie only said that if Chi-Chi were alive, he wouldn't have so much work to do. Charlie sighed and sat down on the sofa, acknowledging that the situation required an urgent solution. Although there were many such situations in the country now. Staring at the ceiling, his voice full of concern, he found it incredible that the S-rank dungeon had spread to another country despite 2 weeks of efforts to contain. Lin Feng remained calm, asking about the approximate time frame for a solution. His eyes were on the report about Shui-An. He said it would be done in 45 days. Suddenly, Lin Feng looked strangely at Charlie, irritating him. He lowered his voice, revealing that a key member of Changfeng had been seriously injured and was not yet able to replace the 7 Stars. Charlie smiled faintly, noting the internal conflict within the Li clan, as Li Changfeng's brothers and sisters had disappeared, forcing him to search for them. After 45 days, the team of adventurers finally approached the portal. 8 researchers went there, armed and ready for battle. The entire group, including Wu-Lu, walked through the dark dungeon. Someone from the group eagerly shouted that they were close to the end, to the boss fight, but this did not impress the main character. And suddenly, on their way, they encountered a bizarre creature that made everyone wary. Resembling a rabbit with a rhinoceros horn, it was a beast specific to the region. This was the boss. Noticing it, part of the team immediately rushed into attack without hesitation. A fight to the death began immediately. The rabbit stomped the ground, creating micro-explosions, while the warriors circled around it with their swords, trying to kill it. 2 men standing next to Wu-Lu marveled at the beast's strength. One of them said that the strength of one of these warriors was enough to take down 3 logisticians in one fell swoop. At that moment, the bald man swung his axe coldly. With one blow, he decapitated the beast, leaving it no chance of survival. Another ran up and stabbed it to make sure it was dead. Seeing no danger, the bald man laughed, telling the team that they could retreat. Everyone nodded, retreating with relief. However, Wu-Lu noticed his teammates' strangely anxious glances in his direction. A bad feeling came over him. He became alert when one of them mysteriously hinted at the beast's speed. Wu-Lu asked the man next to him if he knew anything. The man evaded the question, saying that the small number of monsters was suspicious and urging caution. Suddenly, someone tapped Wu-Lu on the shoulder from behind, causing the main character to turn around. A man with a grim face offered to cover their rear and told Wu-Lu's group to go ahead, reinforcing his suspicions. Wu-Lu coldly replied that he would do so, understanding their intentions. Although he moved with the team, Wu-Lu couldn't hide his uneasiness, suspecting a trap, but he still didn't understand the meaning of their strategy. Suddenly, a monster appeared, blocking the group's path. This monster was in the form of a flying card, and the roulette wheel inside it was the casino boss. The team whispered excitedly about its appearance because it was such good luck, except for one, who fell to the ground at the sight of it and screamed in panic, and then pointed his finger and shouted that two should be sacrificed, pointing at Wu-Lu and another. After all, he was still useful, and these two were just beginners. Wu-Lu looked on with contempt, asking if he had been brought here just to be sacrificed to an invisible beast. He suddenly remembered Chi-Chi's harrowing story about encountering such an invincible creature. When asked for details, she said that it forced people to vote for the victims. Wu-Lu realized that it was like a deadly game, where lives depended on the outcome of the vote. The monster had two forms, one like a clock, appearing only after a decision had been made, hence its invisibility. Wu-Lu wondered if it was counting down. Chi-Chi shook her head, saying that no one had survived to answer. Looking at her orange juice, she thought about the monster and how the beast clouded people's minds, making them ready to kill. Perhaps what they wanted. Wu-Lu, still curious, asked if killing it would yield rare items. Then, excitedly, he asked what would happen if you were chosen as a victim, or if no victims were chosen at all. Chi-Chi took a sip and then paused, sighed, and said that the only way to get out alive was to kill the monster. Returning to reality, the candles on the creature glowed, showing 60 and images of 8 teammates on its rotating body. One happily pointed to the image of Wu-Lu, suggesting they use it to activate the beast's skill. Another agreed, suggesting the young man join them as well. As soon as the clock struck 0, a fire lit up, and in an instant, the group disappeared, leaving Wu-Lu and the other face to face with the beast. The creature grinned maliciously, baring its sharp teeth as if ready to hunt. It roared, transforming menacingly, exuding a deadly aura. The young man panicked, thinking there was no point in resisting, while Wu-Lu, eerily calm, drew his sword for battle. Wu-Lu coldly asked the young man if he simply wanted to die in the clutches of this monster. Terrified, the young man warned that the beast's strength far surpassed that of the previous guards and was almost invincible. The best way was to sacrifice himself. Instantly, a powerful kick struck him in the stomach. He rolled away. This blow was delivered by the main character. The loser slid across the ground, while Wu-Lu took the beast's earth-shaking blow. Still confused, he sat stunned, dumbly calling Wu-Lu's name. Wu-Lu stood, his eyes burning with determination, shouting that he would never give in and would not wait for his death, while the beast roared and attacked. He jumped higher and opened his mouth. At that moment, tension hung heavy in the village of Shui-An. The rift was growing larger and larger. Charlie, restless, paced back and forth near the portal out of irritation. Finally, someone came out of the portal, and that's how the coach met Chung Feng and the Tianquan team. Charlie demanded answers. Chung Feng sadly reported Lin Yi's death. Charlie froze, hesitantly offering his condolences. Chung Feng blamed himself for his lack of leadership. He had failed to protect him. Charlie continued to probe what had happened in the dungeon, stunned by Chang Feng's description of the invisible beast. He said that Lin Yi had sacrificed himself when the team refused to choose a victim. Skeptically, Charlie asked, "What happened to his body?" Chung Feng said it had been completely destroyed. Charlie rubbed his forehead, annoyed, wondering why he always had to face such harsh truths. How could he confirm this? Annoyed, he lit a cigarette and emphasized the need to monitor progress, whoever was in charge, hoping that Chung Feng understood. Exhaling misty smoke, with a heavy gaze, he spoke of the Child of Fortune, a threat that could destroy humanity, using the deaths of many masters to become a killing machine. If Lin Yu was among them, he would have to kill a member of the 7 Stars. Someone nearby signaled that it was time, suggesting to report to the authorities that the worst threat in the dungeon might exceed rank S. Chung Feng quietly adjusted his coat, passing Charlie a letter, stating that the shining light had been resurrected. Charlie could hardly believe what he heard and almost dropped his cigarette from his mouth. The scene shifted back to the dungeon. Wu-Lu gritted his teeth, enduring the vicious blows of the terrifying creature to protect Jing'an. The beast screeched, baring its sharp teeth and delivering a powerful blow. Wu-Lu raised his sword to block, but the force of the blow threw him back. His face contorted. He screamed and struck back with all his might. Blood spurted from Wu-Lu's mouth, his body weakening. The creature did not stop, delivering merciless attacks. Wu-Lu's excellent reflexes allowed him to dodge the deadly blow in time. Leaning on his arm, gasping for breath, he thought to himself, If the beast was as strong as they said, he would have fallen long ago. Gritting his teeth, he rushed into the attack with a steely gaze, betting on his last chance. Seeing the creature's mocking smile, Wu Lu flew into a rage, feeling that it was taunting him. At the decisive moment, he grabbed its arm. The beast reacted instantly, throwing Wu Lu up into the air. Even as he was being dragged, he analyzed the situation. The longer his arm stretched, the more vulnerabilities it exposed. When his other hand struck, he noticed that the main body never moved. The weakness exposed. Seizing the chance, he let go of his arm, landing lightly in front of it. Without hesitation, Wu Lu plunged his sword into its motionless body, thinking it was his lifeline. A spark of hope flashed in his eyes. The blow seemed effective, but then the beast's elongated teeth took his sword and snapped it like a twig or some kind of wafer. Wu Lu froze, unable to react. The monster's other arm quickly wrapped around his leg. It threw him up. The monster's face contorted into an ugly smile, and then the monster slammed the main character to the ground with force. The blow caused excruciating pain, completely exhausting his strength. Behind him, Jing'an screamed in panic, asking why they were fighting this hopeless battle. Wu Lu lay motionless, gasping weakly for air. The beast slowly lifted him up in front of it with its mouth. Preparing to swallow him, its arm wrapped around his waist. Its sharp teeth flashed, its jaws opening to tear him apart. In a daze, Wu Lu wondered if this was where his life would end. As his consciousness faded, a blurred vision appeared. Chi-Chi smiled brightly, reaching out her hand, quietly calling, "Brother, let's go home." Wu Lu reached out toward the vision, unconsciously whispering her name. Memories flooded back, taking him 4 years ago to the cold grave. Chi-Chi, holding back tears, told him about the sacrifice of the girl Duaha to save Tranye, and how they had worried about him. She spoke with tears in her eyes. Wu Lu gently comforted her, assuring her that no one was to blame. She nodded but broke down, sobbing that if he ever left, she wouldn't know how to live. That guy ended up killing himself after all. Wu Lu gently called her name, listening to her speak with determination. She understood everything. Her eyes burned in the rustling autumn wind. He was everything to her. Without him, this world was meaningless. She firmly stated that whatever his reasons for becoming an investigator, she would never give her consent until she died. Wu Lu was stunned by her fierce determination. He gently stroked her head, promising that he would never become an investigator. She asked anxiously if he felt hurt. Wu Lu smiled, his voice firm but warm. Of course not. She had become everything to him too. At that moment, Jing'an shouted, clutching his sword, rushing into a duel with the beast. He slashed furiously at the monster's arms, which were holding the main character. Wu Lu watched with difficulty, weakly calling out to his partner in misfortune. Jing'an's sword broke in half, lacking the strength to break through the defense. The beast, unperturbed, delivered a powerful punch to his stomach. Jing'an spat blood, his body flying backward and crashing into a stone wall, leaving a deep dent. Blood flooded his face as he collapsed, losing consciousness. The beast seemed enraged, letting out a wild roar. It bit Wu Lu's arm, blood gushing out. His pain cry echoed, but the pain sharpened his concentration. He pried its jaws open with his other hand, vowing not to die until he learned the truth about Chi-Chi. The monster bit his shoulder, but he held on tight, refusing to give in. He roared in his mind, his eyes burning with determination, firmly resolved not to lose. With iron will, Wu Lu sank his teeth back into the beast's arm. His agonizing scream made him let go of Wu Lu. The protagonist remembered his unpaid debt to Chi-Chi. He dug in deeper, pulling hard, not giving it a chance to react. Its arm was torn from its body. Its grip loosened, allowing it to fall. In agonizing pain, he clenched his teeth, silent. The beast, having lost its arm, screamed even louder. Red light spread throughout the cave, and then the monster slowly dissolved and disappeared before him. Wu Lu breathed heavily, coughing up blood. Doubting that it was dead, he assumed he had accidentally bitten through vital areas and coughed up blood again. Lying on the ground, he muttered an apology, relieved, as if he had traded his life for Chi-Chi's unfulfilled promise. Suddenly, his wounds healed, causing him to flinch and sit up. A system interface appeared before him. It announced that he had received a passive healing item. Great healing, low version, auto-activation. Wu Lu couldn't hide his shock. Another system panel appeared. A new skill had been obtained, turning trash into treasure. The scene changed abruptly. Lying on the bed, Wu Lu recalled the skill he had obtained in the dungeon, the mechanism of which remained unclear despite days of analysis. Although he hoped for a miracle, he bitterly acknowledged that reality rarely grants them. Suddenly, the phone rang. The main character quickly reached for it. He answered, briefly telling Brother Chin that he was free and would be there soon. The scene changed. Chinza appeared, smiling and waving to Wooloo. Wooloo approached, greeting him in return. Chin told him to sit down as the others had not yet arrived. Sitting next to him, Wooloo was asked about his injuries. He smiled faintly, knowing that he had almost fully recovered thanks to his healing skill. Still concerned, Chinza advised him to assemble a reliable team if he wanted to be an explorer for a long time. Wooloo was about to respond when the female supervisor interrupted, announcing that the logistics for the mission were being prepared. Everyone headed for the spatial gate. Chinza told Wooloo to put his personal affairs aside for the sake of the mission. Beyond the gate, a picturesque landscape unfolded. Lush grass, sunlight filtering through the foliage. Chinza looked at this beauty with suspicion and fear, prompting Wooloo to ask. He rubbed his forehead, his voice heavy. This place was rich in resources, but difficult for logisticians with low-grade resources. Then Aline happily noticed a strange purple mushroom and shouted, "A purple cloud mushroom! What luck!" But its purple spores entered his respiratory tract. Aline coughed violently, spraying saliva. Chinza noted that although there were many goods here, collecting them was problematic. He patted Wooloo on the shoulder, apologizing for bringing him here. Wooloo smiled, calling it a new experience, while Chinza warned, "Don't touch anything, just stay close." After a while, they moved on. Wooloo noticed a strange mushroom with cat ears, but Chinza said it was useless. Sister Zhao announced that the mission was complete and assigned groups to continue clearing the area. Chinza sent Aling and Wooloo with him, deeper into the territory. Suddenly, the mushroom slipped out of Wooloo's hand. He stared at his empty hand in confusion. Looking up, he saw that the mushroom had returned to its original place. Chinza hurried Wooloo along while he remained puzzled by what had happened. The scene changed. The corpse of the monster killed by Sister Zhao was dragged aside for processing. Sister Zhao gave strict instructions before leaving with the wounded, entrusting everything to Chinza. Everyone worked in silence. Another 20 minutes passed. Wooloo noticed that the landscape of the dungeon affected the drop rate of items. There were more plants than minerals here. After gathering everything, he confirmed the progress with Chinza and received a hasty reply. As he moved, Wooloo tripped over a small stone. As he fell, he and his box of cargo rolled forward, and in the end, he hit the ground flat, dropping everything he had collected for so long. As he fell, his hand touched the motionless corpse of a beast. A green light flashed, and the corpse instantly disappeared. The strange sight left Wooloo speechless. Chinza, shocked by the incorrect timing of the decomposition, everything happened a minute earlier. And so the logistics captain urgently ordered a retreat while the main character was still staring at his hand. The scene changed, and Wooloo stepped into the portal, deeply shaken. He quickly left, saying he had personal business to attend to. Chin promised to send him money when his salary arrived. The scene changed to the team's common area. A system panel appeared, announcing rewards and a new message. Wooloo opened it, puzzled by what had happened earlier. The system confirmed the receipt of 2 special mushroom threads. Wooloo was stunned. Realizing that the mushroom and the corpse had been processed into useful items, he believed that his skill really did turn trash into something worthwhile. He realized that if he was lucky, he could even acquire new skills on his own, but his eyes darkened, weighed down by deep thought. Wooloo was afraid that he would be used, as he lacked the strength to keep the secret of the new item. In the dim light of the interface, he pondered the details, carefully planning for the future. Recalling how he had acquired the skill, he realized that he could not risk direct confrontation at this time. To avoid suspicion, secretive and timely actions were necessary. An idea flashed, his eyes lit up. But he needed Chinza's help. Wooloo decided to carry out the plan and quietly thank Chinza later. The scene shifted to a luxurious villa, shining with ostentatious lights. In a quiet room, Jing-an was resting, beaten but with an unyielding gaze. Chung Feng suddenly appeared, prompting Jing-an's surprised question. Why had he come here? Chung Feng asked about his argument with their father and his intention to join the Void movement. Jing-an fiercely objected, saying that he was in charge of his own life. Jing-an's words elicited a sigh from Chung Feng, mixed with helplessness and humility. He advised Jing-an to take care of himself for the sake of his family, then left, without hesitation. A sudden call from behind stopped him in his tracks. Jing-an looked ahead, his voice resolute, his eyes calm. He boldly declared that he would leave the Li clan, demonstrating unwavering determination. The next morning, Wooloo trained in the park, sweating under the early sun. During his training, he thought of ways to safely dispose of the corpses. The first plan was to ask Chinza to create a false identity to hide his real one. Next, he would instruct Chinza to purchase access to void spaces, using the optimal environment to maximize returns. Since the sellers of void spaces were unstable, He needed a reliable intermediary for smooth transactions. Jumping off the horizontal bar and wiping away sweat, Wu Lu reflected that his plan required a strong network of connections. He already had one. Lost in thought, he noticed someone nearby. Turning around, Wu Lu was surprised to see Jing An smiling brightly. Not far away, Jing An had just jumped off the horizontal bar, as if he had been waiting. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Wu Lu looked questioningly at the newcomer. Jing An shyly introduced himself again, reminding Wu Lu of past events. Surprised by his sudden appearance, Wu Lu asked about the purpose of his visit. Jing An stammered and asked to join him. The question stunned Wu Lu. His eyes widened. Jing An's true intentions were unclear. Jing An said fervently that he wanted to emulate Wu Lu's unwavering will in the void. Wu Lu paused, then sternly asked if Jing An had been inquiring about him. Jing An quickly began to deny it. Showing no mercy, Wu Lu coldly refused, saying that there was nothing in him worth following. He turned to leave, leaving Jing An confused, and remembered that Jing had saved him in part. But he disliked people who were willing to give up at the slightest difficulty. A cold glance back served as a final warning. The determined Jing An shouted after him, his voice firm, refusing to give up. But Wu Lu quickly walked away, leaving Jing An standing there, silently vowing to persevere. The scene changed. At the gate of the void space, Qinzi reported difficulties with purchasing void spaces, puzzling Wu Lu. Qinzi smoked as he explained that the rules for the appearance of void spaces had recently changed. Wu Lu was surprised. Since these rules were considered unshakable, Qinzi said that nothing lasts forever. As he was about to ask more questions, Wu Lu noticed someone's presence. It was Jing An, who waved in a friendly manner. Qinzi raised an eyebrow, asking if this was the persistent pursuer who had been following him for the past half-month. Wu Lu recounted how he had once worked with Jing An, not understanding why he had latched onto him. Qinzi teased that he might have fallen in love. Wu Lu confronted Jing An sternly, demanding to know the real reason. No more lame excuses. Jing An feverishly explained, insisting that he admired Wu Lu's strength. Confused, Wu Lu wondered what kind of strength he had. Looking into Jing An's eyes, Wu Lu denied his abilities, repeating that he was just a logistician. Wu Lu emphasized that others were more suitable, urging him not to waste time. But Jing An stood his ground, praising his fighting spirit. Jing An's eyes shone with admiration, and he was determined to become like Wu Lu. Jing An's sincerity shook Wu Lu when he voiced his inadequacy and desire to escape his brother's shadow. Wu Lu frowned, thinking about Jing An's brother, his gaze becoming pensive. For some unknown reason, it suddenly dawned on him. As if realizing something important, a memory surfaced. A memory of Chi-Chi excitedly showing a group photo. Busy at the time, Wu Lu glanced at him briefly, casually asking and learning that it was a photo of the Seven Stars group. Now, remembering the face, he abruptly asked Jing An, "Is his brother Li Changfeng?" Jing An calmly confirmed it. This surprised the main character even more. Wu Lu pondered how different the Li brothers' personalities were. A thought flashed through his mind. He didn't think that such an ordinary, cowardly little man would turn out to be the brother of a famous warrior. Standing in front of Jing An, Wu Lu firmly rejected his request, expressing his desire to live a normal life without burden. Before Jing An could react, Qinzi called the main character to work, prompting Wu Lu to leave for the portal. Before leaving, Wu Lu politely said goodbye, leaving Jing An staring after him, unable to take his eyes off him. The scene changed. After killing the giant white octopus, one of the participants asked in confusion about taking samples. Another grumbled that he was missing his daughter's birthday. Wu Lu offered to take care of the rest, smiling warmly at his teammates. His teammate gratefully patted him on the shoulder, promising to treat him later. Wu Lu smiled faintly, keeping his composure. When the others left, Wu Lu knelt down, activating his decomposition skill in hopes of surprises. Touching the giant tentacle of the beast, the skill activated. The corpse dissolved in an instant. The system reported common items and an incomplete skin. A new item that increased physique and strength caught Wu Lu's attention. He smiled, satisfied, thinking that the right combination could cause a breakthrough in strength. Suddenly, footsteps behind, and a suspicious voice startled Wu Lu. Turning around, he saw his teammate staring intently at him, having arrived at some unknown point in time. The man asked what Wu Lu was doing. It wasn't time yet, but where had the monster's body gone? He pretended to be calm. Clutching the hidden knife, Wu Lu lied, saying that the corpse had disappeared earlier. The man, his face red, cursed angrily, doubting the time of the corpse's disappearance. He had timed it before. He approached, demanding clarity. Wu Lu was at a loss, unable to find a plausible excuse. As the man became more aggressive, he quietly took out the knife, knowing that persuasion was useless. Despite his calm tone, He was unable to diffuse the tense atmosphere. Losing control, the man punched Wu Lu in the face, shouting in rage. Wu Lu staggered, blood dripping from his mouth. Gigi fell to the ground. The man waved the knife, threatening the guy that he must tell him where the monster's body was. He made one last threat, his eyes hostile, demanding the truth. But before he could finish, his eyes widened. Wu Lu struck, fatally stabbing him in the stomach. Before the man could resist, Wu Lu delivered a critical blow to his neck, knocking him out. The man lay motionless, no longer a threat. The protagonist towered over him. Then Wu Lu coldly pulled the knife out of the bastard's stomach without hesitation. His eyes were dark, his voice steely, thirsting for murder. He declared that he had given him a chance. Without looking back, he left his enemy lying in silence, right on the ground, his eyes empty. Suddenly, tears streamed down the guy's face, and horror appeared in his eyes. He looked after Wu Lu and muttered weakly, realizing that the legend was real. His eyes closed for the last time. Life left his body. Later, Wu Lu found himself with his hands in the sink and stood silently, washing the blood from his hands in the bathroom. He looked up and met his reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, a distorted smile appeared in the mirror, and a mocking voice in his head repeated, "Murderer." Unable to control himself, he struck a furious blow. Shards of mirror flew all over the bathroom. He muttered an old saying, then turned away. Murder was now just a common crime. Water gushed out, washing away the blood and traces of glass. His voice was quiet as he accepted that the law was now just an empty shell. Murder had become the norm. Wiping his hands, he coldly stated that there was no need for a reason to kill, but no one had the right to interfere. Resolute, he threw down the towel and left, saying that no one would dare stand in his way. An hour later, Wu Lu emerged from the void, carrying a crystal. The muscular man greeted him cheerfully, joking about the delay. Wu Lu responded easily, saying he had tripped. The other laughed, urging caution and asking him to deliver the items to the investigation team. He pointed to the tent where the team was waiting. Wu Lu smiled in agreement. When he left, one of them became concerned about the unchecked goods, but his teammate explained that Wu Lu was known for his honesty and kindness, always ready to help. Tapping the other on the head as a warning, he emphasized that even good people, or ordinary simpletons, have their limits. The scolded man grumbled, calling Wu Lu a weakling. Then he was shocked to learn that he was the brother of Shining Light. Everyone watched Wu Lu's receding figure, wondering why the brother of Shining Light would take on such exhausting, low-paying work, and worrying because she had not appeared for a long time. The scene changed, and Wu Lu carried food, walking slowly home. His eyes heavy, he sighed helplessly, his voice even, but tinged with fatigue. He asked directly, "When will you stop following me?" Jing'an jumped in panic, thinking he had covered his tracks. While he was confused, Wu Lu appeared silently, patting him on the shoulder, scaring Jing'an. Jing'an cried out, reacting violently. In a panic, he hit his head against the nearest wall. Wu Lu watched, thinking that with such timidity, he would dare to track anyone down. Jing'an stammered, asking how he had been caught. Wu Lu crossed his arms and accused him in an icy voice of violating the personal boundaries of his life. Wu Lu grimly warned that if it happened again, he would not hold back. Jing'an began to waver, his courage no longer sufficient for more. But he couldn't just go home in disgrace either. Ignoring the rest, Wu Lu strode away without looking back. Jing'an feverishly followed him, trembling and insisting that he could be useful. He tried to persuade him, offering to help sell the goods, despite the ridicule and contempt. His words made Wu Lu's face harden, his gaze becoming wary. Wu Lu gave him a piercing look, his voice dry, asking if he was pretending to be enthusiastic in order to spy. Jing'an hastily denied it, insisting that it was a coincidence and that he had learned about the sales unintentionally. Clenching his fists, he calmed down, claiming that he had sales channels and swearing that he had not eavesdropped and would not betray him. Wu Lu weighed the situation, seeing that Jing'an's personality could help in the covert distribution of goods. He was about to talk to the guy and find out what their future cooperation might be like, but they were abruptly interrupted by a loud explosion. Both of them flinched at the blast, and Jing'an turned toward the sound. They quickly ran out into the street, and the cowardly Jing exclaimed, shocked that the explosion had occurred in a safe zone. Two dark figures were vaguely visible on the neighboring roof. Jing'an instantly recognized one of them and shouted, "Brother, Chen Feng!" In midair, Cheng Feng confronted the masked man, his eyes filled with a thirst for murder. The masked man smirked arrogantly, mocking that he had caught valuable prey. Silently, Cheng Feng responded with a powerful shockwave. Although the mask dodged, he lost a few hairs from the glancing blow. Despite the attack, the parrot calmly mocked him, provoking questions about his identity to stall for time. Chung Feng coldly cut him off, stating that he didn't care about his chatter. Mask played the role of the main villain, hoping to exert pressure, but was completely ignored. Chung Feng, without reacting, began to gather energy in his hand. The aura condensed into a sharp ice sword, and Chung Feng was about to finish off this bastard in a white cloak. Clenching the hilt, his icy gaze pierced Mask like a blade. In a sardonic tone, he said he would cooperate once Parrot was dead. The Mask, unperturbed, formed a large fireball, feigning a call for peace. Preaching for a ceasefire, his hand continued to feed the burning sphere. Chung Feng wasted no time, rushing into the attack like a whirlwind. A cold wind howled as his figure rushed toward the Mask. He swung his sword decisively, cutting through the fireball. Powerful forces collided, creating a thunderous explosion in the air. Using the smoke screen, Chung Feng's sword rushed towards the Mask, but Parrot blocked the thrust with 2 fingers, smiling confidently and menacingly. Unperturbed, Chung Feng drew a second sword, attacking unexpectedly from another angle. The guy in the cloak barely noticed, retreating to dodge the deadly blow. The dodge saved his body, but not his arm. The blade wounded it, and now there was distance between them again, both preparing for the next move in the battle. Wiping the blood from his face, Z grinned excitedly. He was amazed that Chung Feng was wielding 2 swords. Chung Feng snorted mockingly, congratulating him as if he didn't care. Hearing this, Mask was delighted, laughing heartily and enjoying the fight. They clashed again, sword and fire colliding fiercely. A thrilling scene that Wu Lu and Jing An couldn't take their eyes off. Suddenly, Jing An moved forward to start running. Wu Lu grabbed him by the shoulder, asking what he was doing. Jing An struggled, shouting that he had to help his older brother. Wu Lu frowned, asking if it was worth risking his life only to get in the way and become a burden during the battle. He firmly advised that if he really cared about his brother, it would be better to stay safe. Watching the battle, he found it incredible that Mask could match Chung Feng. 7 stars, the strongest. Thinking about this, Wu Lu took out his phone and quickly recorded the enemy. Jing An said he understood that he had to hide and wait until the end, but in his rage, he still refused to just watch. Disappointed by his helplessness, Wu Lu left silently, leaving Jing An shouting after him and receiving only a cold reply that he had things to do. Later, both returned to Wu Lu. They approached the door of the dwelling. Before entering, Wu Lu said he would consider the offer and get back to him later. Jing An desperately begged him to stop, but Wu Lu ignored him, slamming the door and hitting Jing An on the head. The door slammed, causing Jing An to cringe in pain, thinking he would be let in. Meanwhile, the focused Wu Lu was uploading images of the Mask to the computer for investigation. When the data was loaded, the screen showed combat scenes. The footage illuminated a fierce duel between Mask and Chung Feng. Wu Lu analyzed each frame, his eyes sharp as knives, scanning the details. Suddenly, he noticed something. His eyes lit up. For a second, a strange detail flashed on the Mask's cloak in a couple of frames. A cat in a vest, shocking him. He muttered something incoherent, not believing his eyes. Without delay, Wu Lu called Chenmu, sending him the image and asking about the strange creature. Half an hour later, the phone rang again. It was the same number. Answering, Wu Lu asked insistently if he had found anything, but Chenmu laughed, teasing that if he hadn't found anything, he wouldn't have called back. Losing his patience, Wu Lu yelled at Chenmu to stop talking. Chenmu cursed, then revealed that it was the symbol of investigator Xing Yi, a cat lover. But he added that Xing Yi had died last year, stunning Wu Lu. Suspecting that the death was not straightforward, he asked for more details. Chenmu explained. Xing Yi did not die on an official mission, but in an unusual way near the entrance to the A-rank void space, and the killer has not been identified. He asked where Wu Lu had seen the image, receiving only a cryptic answer. Chenmu seriously warned that the symbol meant a trophy, urging him to avoid those who wore it. Wu Lu went out onto the balcony, pondering the trophy. Chenmu shouted, annoyed by his feigned ignorance. Wu Lu cautiously opened the door, stepping out onto the terrace. Watching the chaos in the distance, he raised his head, guessing that the suspect had escaped. Chenmu continued to warn him, emphasizing that the trophy had a clear meaning and asking questions. But Wu Lu only asked if he had any more information. Slumped over, Chenmu teased that he would have to beg for details. Not appreciating the joke, Wu Lu sternly demanded that he speak plainly. Chenmu became serious, his voice lowering as he reported that someone could be stealing other people's symbols and that this was no joke. He spoke of a masked figure, Zidi, with caution in his tone, too mysterious for even his superiors to control. Wu Lu froze when he mentioned the excavator organization, surprising Chenmu with his knowledge. Chenmu asked in shock, how? why, and where he knew about this bunch of psychopaths. Wulu casually explained that Chi-Chi had mentioned it once. Shenmue analyzed that the excavator group was chaotic but strangely united and should not be underestimated. Wulu remained silent, deep in thought, making Shenmue nervous. He pressed him anxiously, suspecting that Wulu was planning to investigate this group, noting that he no longer had any protection. Wulu responded firmly, demanding that Shenmue tell the truth and hide nothing. Shenmue exhaled, revealing that information about Chi-Chi was leaking and would soon spread. Wulu pressed him, demanding to know who had told him this. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman mysteriously handed Shenmue a black card. Taking it, Shenmue continued, confirming that his information came from the chairman of the Great Unity Guild, not bought, but obtained. Wulu agreed, asking Shenmue to help him continue his investigation into the group of people collecting trophies. The guy asked what Gigi was up to. Looking at the photo of Chi-Chi on the wall, Wulu said grimly that he would move when the news of her death leaked out. Shenmue felt relieved by his calmness. But before Shenmue could finish, Wulu abruptly hung up, unwilling to listen any further. Touching Chi-Chi's photo with sad eyes, he thought that he had expected the leak after the information from his brother Chin. It was unexpected that the association had hidden the truth for so long. Wulu whispered that fortunately, Chi-Chi had not become a commodity, otherwise the consequences would have been dire. The scene changed abruptly. He entered the training room, where the robots were waiting. The combat simulation system activated instantly. The robot rushed from the right, delivering a powerful blow. Wulu noticed, but was unable to react, taking the blow himself. Two more robots rushed at him, forcing him to retreat into defense. As the blow loomed, the robot's fist froze in midair. Charlie appeared in the doorway, clapping approvingly, noting Wulu's obvious progress. Wulu wiped the sweat from his brow, humbly approaching Charlie and thanking him. Charlie smiled easily, saying he hadn't taught him that much. He glanced at him, hinting that Wulu was not yet accustomed to this place. Charlie pointed to the robots, noting that even talented people with Wulu's physique usually lacked the physical strength to quickly deal with both of them. But he had managed it. The guy realized that his improvement was probably noticeable. Charlie teased him deliberately, not asking where he got all that strength from, but asking why he had come today. Frowning, he warned against using training as an excuse, saying that he wouldn't believe him, he wasn't that stupid. Wulu remained silent. Charlie turned, getting down to business. Li Changfeng had caused a lot of trouble. Stepping softly, he told Wulu to sit down next to him for a serious conversation. When Wulu sat down, Charlie told him how Li Changfeng had nearly destroyed half of Minkun City. Gigi was shocked. Yes, Wulu heard Charlie add. He seemed calm, but he acted recklessly when he lost his mind. And then, chaos ensued. Wulu saw the fight with the man in white robes. Smoking, Charlie noted that the man in white was strong, but Li Changfeng was no match for him. It was unclear why he lost control. He added that Shining Light, his sister, probably told him that Li Changfeng was the most powerful of the 7 stars. The problem is that he has no limits. Charlie shared a secret. Li Changfeng was the only member of the 7 stars with limited power. Once freed, he would become a formidable killer. Wulu recalled Chi-Chi's words. Although Tianshu topped the list, Li Changfeng was truly the strongest. He asked why Charlie had revealed this. Charlie, surprised, thought that Wulu had come for this. Wulu denied it. Charlie stared, suspecting that Wulu's target was the man in white. Wulu firmly confirmed that he wanted to reveal the identity of this person. Charlie said he would share if he had a compelling reason. Wulu stated that he did not believe that Chi-Chi had died in an accidental accident during research, and Charlie probably knew this. Charlie acknowledged and confirmed that this reason was sufficient. Charlie suddenly flew into a rage, saying that he had planned to use Li Changfeng to force Wulu to back down, blaming him for his recklessness. Wulu, calm but firm, reminded Charlie of his statement that he could silence him. Charlie stared intently, warning that knowing the truth would lead to a deadly, inevitable path, contrary to the wishes of the Shining Light. Pausing, he revealed that the man in white was from a new mysterious group called the Saints. He then said that a selection process would soon begin in the 7 stars, which struck Wulu like a blow, causing him to freeze in the quiet room. Wulu looked up and asked sharply, "Have the 7 stars replaced their members because of the appearance of the Saints?" Charlie leaned against the wall, his gaze cold. He said that although the origin of the Saints was unclear, their goals were obvious. Frowning, he reasoned that if the Saints were aiming to eliminate the investigators, they would eventually clash with the 7 stars. Defeating them first would mean securing control. Wulu retorted sharply, "If their origins are unknown, how do you know their name?" Charlie compared them to flat villains from stories, arrogant and unpredictable. Wooloo smirked, mocking that they were like heretical groups making a fuss about the void movement. Charlie replied casually, his voice tired. Perhaps the world was full of delusional fools who were unaware of themselves. Wooloo lowered his head, torn between duty and concern, asking if replacements had been chosen for his sister. Charlie parried, surprised that he didn't ask about the saints. Wooloo asked if an urgent replacement for the Shining Light was necessary. Stunned, Wooloo's eyes flashed as he probed Charlie's thoughts. Charlie raised his hand, saying that since he loved his sister, he wasn't sure if Wooloo would lose control. Wooloo stood up, calmly stating that Chi-Chi was first herself, then his sister, and only at the end was she the shining light of the 7 stars. Charlie laughed, giving Wooloo a thumbs up, praising him as his student, rational and sober despite his devotion to his sister. Unlike the guy obsessed with his brother, whose face had become fierce and whose eyes had turned to steel, emphasizing that the 7 stars were the key to national stability and that it was now critical to preserve them for both the organization and the country. Wooloo froze. Charlie looked guilty, apologetic. Wooloo exploded, but was coldly interrupted by Charlie, insisting that it was a necessary choice. Wooloo pressed on, confirming that Charlie intended to reveal everything, even if not asked. Charlie nodded, sadly acknowledging this. Wooloo warned sternly that Chi-Chi's case could not remain buried. In a voice as firm as iron, he accused her replacement of creating a clone, her sacrifice hidden, as if it had never happened. Wooloo turned away, anger smoldering inside, mocking the perfection of the plan. Charlie did not argue, shouting that the investigation contest was postponed, revealing the formation of a multinational alliance against them. Wooloo, walking away, stopped at this news. Turning around, his eyes burning, he accused them of never consulting him. Now they were using justice to pressure him. Finishing, he walked away decisively, his footsteps sounding cold. Charlie, disappointed, said bitterly that he was definitely not suited for such conversations. The scene changed abruptly. Dawn broke. Sunlight spilled over the mountains, and the leaves rustled. Wooloo pointed to the training area corridor, his destination. His footsteps crunched on dry leaves, breaking the morning silence of the forest. In front of the E-rank cave, he studied the map, noticing that the other association was stuck. His skills had stagnated, so he would take a chance. Although tense, Wooloo stepped forward without hesitation, thinking that the money spent on this information had better not go to waste. A bright blue vortex gate appeared before him. Looking around, he was amazed at the influence of the Great Unity Guild, which had found this portal in such a remote and forgotten place. Crossing the threshold, he stepped onto a mirror-like surface of water, the light flickering. The cave glowed with an otherworldly blue light, with strange trees, glowing fruits, and eerie vines hanging from the ceiling. Wooloo picked up a smooth stone, the air thick with the smell of damp moss. He threw it hard, sending ripples across the water, suddenly shaking everything around him. A scarred, monstrous shark burst out of the lake, huge as a nightmare. It chased after the stone, mistaking it for prey, bearing rows of sharp teeth. Wooloo sighed, realizing that his training research plan was ruined. He darted across the floating stones, moving smoothly, as if gliding over the waves. His gaze was sharp, his movements graceful. He hoped the shark wouldn't bite his butt. His footsteps kicked up spray as he jumped between the rocks. Suddenly, a giant shark soared upward, its mouth as wide as the abyss, intent on swallowing him whole. Wooloo flinched but reacted, pushing its jaw to deflect the attack. At the same time, he spun in the air, delivering a quick counterattack. A water vortex swirled around him. He landed lightly, growling at these troublesome creatures. The sharks roared as they attacked, their teeth flashing like steel. Wooloo calmly dodged the blows by inches, sweat mixing with the water on his face, his determined gaze unwavering. Another shark leaped out of the water, its bloody teeth aimed to devour. Wooloo, with burning determination, did not retreat, delivering a thunderous blow to its head, splattering green blood. Surviving this frenzied attack, he landed softly on the opposite bank, his gaze calm but alert. Carefully scanning the area, he whispered with relief, grateful that he had not encountered other amphibians in this chaos. Suddenly, the water erupted violently. 2 sharks soared upward, forming walls of water that closed in on both sides, shocking him. A giant hand slammed into the ground, revealing a larger creature lying in wait nearby, trapped between 2 massive scarred gray beasts with glowing red eyes and snapping fangs. Wooloo faced enormous pressure. Gritting his teeth, he growled irritably that they were going too far. A powerful blow echoed through the forest, creating a terrifying shockwave. Wooloo collapsed, breathing heavily after a fierce battle and victory over the pack of sharks. Surrounded by the bloody corpses of animals, he muttered bitterly that if they had dragged him underwater, they would have torn him to pieces. After cleaning up, he touched the corpse. The system reported, X1, bipedal humanoid, fish meat and scales obtained. Also rare pearls, shark eyeballs from both defeated creatures. Holding the pearl, Wooloo stared in horror at its beautiful but terrifying shape. Frowning contemptuously, he wondered why anyone would use these legendary beauty enhancers. Turning to leave, he thought to himself, only 2 pearls from the flock, not a complete loss. Still, he sighed, because rare items drop from bosses, not to mention ordinary mobs. His steps faltered in the dark forest when he saw a glowing, clear lake with a shining lotus emitting an eerie light. A blue-purple butterfly, like something out of a fairy tale, landed. Its wings shimmered with an unearthly glow, beautiful but frightening. Wooloo looked at it suspiciously, guessing that it was a boss. His anxiety grew. He knew that these butterflies were famous for their toxic pollen and deadly illusions. Without hesitation, with a cold gaze, he threw his sword at the creature on the lotus, whispering that it would be better to lure it onto the rocks. The sword pierced her fragile body like lightning, spraying blue liquid, the petals trembling under the weight of the revealed truth. A strong ripple spread across the lake, as if invisible gates had opened. The waves dispersed. Then, a suspicious calm quickly returned. On the shore, Wooloo narrowed his eyes, feeling uneasy. A white, root-like hand rose, holding a shining golden crystal that pulsed in the darkness like a living heart. With his eyes wide open, he muttered a question, then lunged forward like lightning, throwing a decisive dagger. He thought the butterfly was a trap, and that the real leader was this emerging creature. The black sword whistled, shattering the creature's translucent body, exploding into countless glowing fragments with a terrifying sound. After the battle, Wooloo landed softly, looking at the fading traces of light, feeling that he was lucky today. Approaching, he touched the sword among the glowing remains, feeling an unnatural coldness, muttering that a stronger enemy could have killed him. Suddenly, a blue light flashed, startling him as an alien energy not of this world invaded. He received Adventure 1, and adventure would soon await him. The scene changed abruptly. The morning sunlight sparkled in the deep forest. Wooloo jogged through the fairy tale landscape, his gaze quiet and pensive. While running, he suddenly saw Chinza waving cheerfully. Wooloo stopped, then approached, asking what was going on. Chinza pretended to be offended by the suspicion that he had come for no reason. Wooloo smiled and replied that he could. Chinji joked about his fit physique, reminding him again of the need for reliable teammates. Wooloo readily agreed, thanking him. Chinja laughed, promising to send the information later. Suddenly, Chinja's demeanor changed. His eyes became serious, and he asked why Wooloo was collecting spatial voids and animal corpses. Wooloo remembered their conversation at the spatial gate when he asked Chinja to find sellers of materials, which was now hindered by new laws. Testing the waters, Chinja asked if this had anything to do with Chi-Chi, interrupting Wooloo's thoughts. Gigi asked if he had heard anything. Images of Chi-Chi's besieged house flashed through Wooloo's mind. Chinja mentioned the spread of rumors and pressure from the guild. Wooloo remained calm, assuring him that the guild would refute the rumors and that Chi-Chi's work would soon be finished, and he would invite Chinza and his wife to dinner. Chinja laughed, changing the subject. Asking about recent events, Wooloo casually mentioned that he had finished his secret training. Moments of life and death in the cave flashed through his mind, where every second of inattention meant death from carnivorous plants. From battles with bizarre plants to encounters with giant beehives, these were mere trifles for Wooloo in his travels through the spatial voids. Chinja laughed, playfully punched him in the chest, and left. Wooloo stood there, smiling awkwardly and politely saying goodbye. When Chinja's figure disappeared, Wooloo watched calmly, outwardly remaining unperturbed, but his eyes flashed with icy determination, silently questioning whether gaining power could change Chi-Chi's fate. Could he take his sister's identity for himself? Returning home, Wooloo saw Jing-an sitting stunned at his door as if he had been waiting for a very long time. Seeing him, Jing-an jumped up, cheerfully calling out. Wooloo coldly asked how long he had been waiting. Jing-an grinned, saying, "About 10 days." Wooloo sighed, feeling both irritated and helpless at his persistence. After a brief remark, Wooloo opened the door. Jing-an peered inside, cautiously asking if he could come in. Receiving a refusal, Jing-an looked up, his eyes pleading, asking to be allowed to follow him. Wu Lu was suspicious of his excessive friendliness. Without waiting, Wu Lu set a clear condition. He asked if he really had many connections. Jing An expressed his desire to go with him, and then Gigi asked if the guy wanted to enter the spatial voids with him. If so, Wu Lu firmly refused, warning that without determination, there was nothing to discuss. Besides, he was not as strong as the newcomer thought. Jing An clutched his backpack, his eyes burning with desire, and asked what Wu Lu thought. Wu Lu coldly replied that he needed a partner, not a brother. Wu Lu offered a deal. Jing An would handle sales with a 7-3 split, ensuring that no one would associate the goods with him. Jing An instantly agreed, boasting his business confidence. Wu Lu gently suggested training plans, knowing he had his brother from 7 stars as backup. Jing An suddenly moved closer, his cheeks flushed, insisting that he really needed help. Wu Lu stepped back, politely but firmly declining the offer, saying he had things to do. Before parting, Wu Lu suggested exchanging another means of communication for further conversation. Jing An's eyes lit up, and he waved his hand enthusiastically, promising to wait for the call. A week later, Wu Lu stopped on a winding desert mountain trail, grumbling that the spatial voids were in increasingly remote locations. He rushed through a small forest, thinking about the 3 E-rank spatial voids he had purchased, scattered and isolated. As he approached an old wooden house, Wu Lu pondered the scarce supply on the market and the decline in trading value. Although he was prepared, the results were disappointing. He had pinned his hopes on Jing An to bring good news. Walking through the quiet forest, Wu Lu froze when a swirling blue gate appeared, signaling hidden danger. A massive dark green snake burst out of the gate, its eyes fierce, intent on attacking. Wu Lu reacted instantly, swinging his sword. The blow tore through space. The powerful blow cut the snake in two, and it screamed in agony before collapsing. Wu Lu frowned, suspecting that the wild creatures had approached the spatial voids, which was unprecedented since their appearance. Anxiety washed over him. He thought that if this was caused by a change in the rules, humanity faced an unpredictable threat. Without hesitation, Wu Lu entered the vortex gate, ready for whatever awaited him. He stepped into a dense, ancient forest, the dirt path leading deeper in, the gate behind him still glowing. The deeper he went, the more his anxiety grew. He remained extremely vigilant. He sensed that time here was not synchronized with the outside world. There was a sharp sound. The bamboo shoots were torn out by an invisible force. A strange force pushed him from behind, almost knocking Wu Lu over, while the bamboo shoots swayed mockingly. Before he could regain his balance, a giant python with glowing eyes burst out of the bushes, bearing its poisonous fangs with a thirst for murder. Wu Lu slashed the first snake, then quickly grabbed the other one, attacking him. He mercilessly threw it into the bamboo, disturbing the plants. But as the monsters multiplied, Wu Lu abandoned the attacked bamboo and ran. Taking quick steps, he realized he couldn't linger as the beasts continued to arrive. Suddenly, Wu Lu stopped. His gaze sharpened, and he cautiously looked back. The snakes retreated. The bamboo seemed to frown, which brought Wu Lu relief as he broke free from the encirclement. As he continued on his way, he regretted the loss of materials for analysis in this chaos. Deeper into the misty forest, sunlight broke through. A shimmering figure appeared under the canopy of trees. Wu Lu stopped, watching warily, shocked by the sight of a humanoid monster in the spatial void of rank E. Memories flooded back. Humanoid monsters were rare and deadly. Few survived after encountering them. A gray-haired old man reading a book in a surreal space noticed Wu Lu staring at him strangely. His low voice broke the silence, asking if they had met before. Wu Lu felt confused as no clues appeared, realizing that this was not a typical question-and-answer monster. Remembering Chi-Chi's stories, he recalled a special humanoid type. Forced question and answer. Wrong answers strengthen it, right answers weaken it. The old man sighed, lamenting his memory loss. His voice had a hint of helplessness. Suddenly, he looked seriously at Wu Lu, asking him to choose the best movie out of the 4 he had seen. Wu Lu froze, his mind working feverishly, as the old man did not attack, showing no signs of statistics. Weighing the options intently, he muttered under pressure. If he answered incorrectly, would he die instantly? Wu Lu asked seriously, why not watch them all? Or, for example, what genre does the elf like? The old man cheerfully said that good things should be enjoyed slowly, as he liked them all. Finding himself at an impasse, Wu Lu suggested rolling a die to decide. The old man tilted his head, unfamiliar with this. Wu Lu took out a dice, explaining that when you can't choose, it's better to let luck decide. The old man became curious and asked how it worked. The main character was still thinking about how to defeat this elf. With no other choice, Wooloo simply went with the flow and threw the dice. It immediately landed on 3. The old man was delighted, as the third was his most desired film. Wooloo sighed, not surprised by the outcome. Instantly, the images of the movies above the old man disappeared. Wooloo immediately gripped his weapon, carefully retreating into a defensive stance. The old man asked why he was doing this, confused. Wooloo hesitated, citing an insect bite, then changed the subject by asking about his actions. The old man replied seriously, his eyes mischievous, saying that he was looking for a gift for Wooloo, who was confused. He leafed through the book, his face childlike, pondering the best gift for the main character. Finally, he tore out a page and handed it to Wooloo with a faint smile, calling it a reward for his help. The glowing page spun around, turning into a shining clock floating in the air. In a warm voice, the old man thoughtfully said that some people were still worthy, stirring emotions. He turned, stepping into the giant gate behind him, waving goodbye and hoping to meet again. Wooloo caught the clock, his thoughts confused, unable to comprehend why there was a monster in the cave that gave gifts. The system notified him that he had received a watch with 2 functions, checking statistics and one-time immunity to death. Clutching it, Wooloo felt conflicted because it was clearly a high-level threat. However, its actions were strangely innocent and kind. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the Qingyang capital arena was lively. Chenmu yawned, bored and uninterested in the scene. Lazily watching the 2 fighters, he grumbled about the poor matches and his pointless presence. Checking his phone, Chenmu was startled by 13 missed calls from Wooloo, feeling the pressure mounting. Stepping behind the stands, he answered casually, asking what was going on. Wooloo, concerned, asked where he was. Chenmu, with his hand in his pocket, said he was watching amateurs fight. Then Wooloo seriously asked about the situation, specifically about the humanoid monster in the spatial void. Shocked by the question, Chenmu denied having encountered such a creature, insisting that such beings were extremely rare. While eating, the protagonist asked again. Wooloo confirmed their rarity, even for frequent explorers. He explained that space void journals were rare, accurate rulebooks for these spaces. Wooloo described an encounter with a humanoid monster that looked dangerous but not aggressive, which alarmed Chenmu. The boy asked if the protagonist had killed it. Wooloo, puzzled by Chenmu's reaction, heard his guess that it was a rare, benevolent entity. Chenmu described it as having no characteristics, often giving rare items to those it encountered. Once, he even gave a person an artifact that stopped time for 3 seconds. Wooloo asked why such important information had not been disseminated to make use of its value. A sudden explosion near Chenmu interrupted the conversation. Gigi asked what had happened, and Chenmu said that these newbies were useless. The guy asked him if he was in the researcher competition. Chen was surprised that Gigi knew about this too. Wooloo confirmed his knowledge, clenched his watch, thought for a moment, then asked who was in charge of this matter. The system displayed Wooloo's game characteristics, level, strength, and abilities. Wooloo looked at the data, unsure of its true purpose. Chenmu didn't know why he had been summoned, noting that he probably needed to maintain order here. Gigi immediately asked, "Are the stars there?" He added that besides Fisher and Bay, others were involved as well. At the foot of the hill, Fisher, overwhelmed with work, was chatting cheerfully with someone, leaving Chenmu helpless. Chenmu hurriedly ended the call as the situation became critical. After hanging up, Chenmu walked for a long time, thinking. And then he remembered that he had forgotten to mention that information about the great benefactor was concealed to avoid misidentification. But he decided to ignore it and just moved on. At night, the headquarters of the Qingyang Investigation Guild glowed, signaling continuous work. Charlie said on the phone that he would send something, then hung up to attend to personal matters. After that, Charlie barked at his companion, urging him to finish quickly. Naihai, the elderly leader of the guild, asked meaningfully why Charlie was so impatient. Charlie was boiling with rage, saying that waiting for almost 2 hours was outrageous, mocking that Fisher's usual tardiness was less annoying. The teenager next to him angrily protested, justifying his delay with his responsibilities. Chailai's cold gaze demanded that they get down to business. Naihai calmly announced the assignment. Fisher would train the selected recruits, and Charlie would assist him. Fisher snorted, mocking the weakness of the recruits. Charlie was not thrilled with the task either. Naihai countered by asking why the guys were so radically unwilling to do it. Fisher said he didn't want to bother with these weaklings and idiots, that being useless wasn't as bad as losing face in battle. When asked to speak up, Charlie sternly refused, citing a lack of time and skills, and asking for leave. Suddenly, the phone on the table lit up, attracting everyone's attention. Ignoring the refusal, Naihai assigned a 3-day task with organized support, infuriating Chailai, who shouted that he wanted a leave of absence. Naihai's voice turned icy, emphasizing that this was an order, not a discussion. Fisher stormed out, defiantly declaring that he would only follow Captain Tiansu's orders. Watching Fisher leave, Naihai sighed. Charlie smirked, mocking the guild's choice of weaklings, and the fact that Fisher only refrained from causing a scene out of respect for his age. Charlie's tone changed, and he seriously questioned the guild's controversial decisions. Naihai parried by asking why Charlie had shared information about that person, leaving him speechless, and the coach hastened to leave. He emphasized that the task relied on Chai-Lai's skills and intuition, expecting decent results. Faced with the question, Charlie remained silent. The next morning, they trained hard on the lush green grass. Wulu looked at the breathless Jing-an, wondering if he had ever trained seriously. Jing-an, exhausted, collapsed, muttering that he only jogged lightly every day. Wulu frowned and pushed harder. Hearing about Jing-an's few thousand steps, he warned him to leave early if nothing changed, as there were safer routes. Jing-an weakly explained that he was not lazy, but that an illness in childhood had made him frail. Wulu asked if it could be cured. They sat down, and Jing-an sighed as he recounted his unsuccessful treatment even by research healers, which made Wulu think of the treasures of the spatial voids as a last resort. Jing-an noted that such treasures were difficult to obtain, as they were hidden away by the nobility. Wulu doubted that anyone would be willing to trade them. Jing-an said he had met someone who was willing to trade, mentioning the great monster, which aroused Wulu's suspicion. Wulu pretended to be surprised. Then the guy asked the main character if he had ever heard of the benefactor. The guy said no, he had never heard of him, and asked what was so special about him. Jing-an said that one of the 7 stars had met the great benefactor, and her weapon was a gift from him. Although it was a monster, the girl spoke instead of fighting when she received the weapon. Wulu was stunned by the monster's kindness. Jing-an believed that the great benefactor was true to his nature. The story made Wulu doubtful. Charlie's notes never mentioned honest deals. Was this hidden from him? And why did Manhwa say that the researchers could have made a mistake? Jing-an curiously asked what the guy was thinking about. Wulu calmly replied, offering to lend him the villa, to which Jing-an gladly agreed. Jing-an was surprised by the main character's solitary training. Wulu walked along, thinking about the resources controlled by large organizations. Wulu wanted neither ties to guilds nor bribes, choosing independence. As for spending, looking up at the sky, Wulu was overcome with nameless sorrow, haunted by memories of Chi-Chi, and thought that he would not touch Chi-Chi's things unless necessary. 2 weeks later, the guy returned to the familiar building. He walked slowly, hiding his inner turmoil, but his instincts stopped him. His eyes widened. The broken door revealed a chaotic, unnatural scene. Wulu entered, his face cold, his eyes scanning the space warily. Suddenly, an object flew at him with terrifying force, cutting his cheek. What appeared to be a harmless chopstick flew at extreme speed, carrying enormous power, and embedded itself in the wall. Looking up, Wulu saw Fisher von Masters sitting casually, his gaze piercing. Wulu sneered, asking if this was the 7 stars standard greeting. Fisher coldly asked if he was Chi-Chi's useless brother, clutching the frame with her precious photo, which infuriated Wulu. Wulu shouted for him to give it back. Fisher smirked, continuing to taunt him. Fisher pressed forward, provoking him. He stood up and asked, "Does Wulu really think he has the right to be angry?" Wulu stood firm, repeating his demand, met with Fisher's icy challenge. Unable to restrain himself, Wulu lunged forward, clenching his fists, intending to knock Fisher down. Fisher met him calmly, grabbing his fists and mocking Wulu's lack of strength for such anger. Instantly, Fisher counterattacked, and the protagonist's eyes widened. He choked Wulu with superhuman strength, questioning his right to exist. Fisher roared, accusing Wulu of never honoring Chi-Chi, unworthy of being her brother. Through the pain in his memory, Chi-Chi's gentle voice echoed, recalling a birthday celebration just for the 2 of them. His breathing faltered, his throat tightened, and Wulu's vision blurred. Yet he did not give up, resisting with his last ounce of strength. His face tense, his eyes red with rage and growing determination, he knocked Fisher's hand away from his neck with a single blow. Then Wulu moved forward toward him, rushing into a tense struggle, fiercely resisting. He struck forward with his hand like a karateka, but Fisher quickly and easily dodged. But he didn't take one simple detail into account. The main character was not so simple. Fisher's eyes widened. With a sudden, decisive kick, Wulu made Fisher spit blood, catching him off guard. His eyes blazing, Wulu prepared to strike again, an aura like fire around his arm as he raised his fist. His left hand yanked Fisher's hair, throwing his head back and making him writhe in pain, his face defiant but helpless. Without hesitation, Wu-Lu tried to punch Fisher in the face again, causing him to turn pale, sweat pouring down under immense pressure despite his resistance. When the punch was blocked, Wu-Lu quickly kicked, forcing Fisher to retreat to reduce the damage. Taking advantage of Fisher's mistake, Wu-Lu instantly snatched the photo frame. Stopping the fight, he stepped back, coldly questioning Fisher's right to doubt their family connection. Wu-Lu let him go, his golden hair falling as a final warning. Leave now. Fisher ignored him, smirking as he recalled the frail Wu-Lu, exhausted after the intense stares, barely lifting his bag. He mocked past difficulties, asking if such a weakling was Chi-Chi's brother, who fainted when the power went out. He flew through the air with a hooded man and said that brother Chi-Chi would surely have died if there had been no elevator in their house. Fisher's anger flared, and he shouted that Wu-Lu had become strong too late. Crying after Chi-Chi's death, Wu-Lu endured silently, knowing how others viewed Chi-Chi and himself. They thought she was just a puppet in his hands. Fisher grabbed him by the collar, roaring that he had fought side by side with Chi-Chi in life-and-death battles in the spatial voids. Who was he to judge? Fisher's words pierced Wu-Lu's heart, his resolve fading, leaving behind a quiet pain. Wu-Lu sank to the floor, his spirit broken. Fisher turned away, carrying a hidden resentment. He had been there for her only once. Fisher's voice, heavy with self-reproach, swore that he would have died for Chi-Chi if he had been there. Before Chi-Chi's portrait, Fisher bowed his head in remorse, asking why he had not been there at her fateful moment. Wu-Lu coldly asked why Fisher wasn't there, receiving contempt and information that Chi-Chi often praised and loved her brother. Fisher asked in an icy tone if Chi-Chi really knew the cold person she trusted. Wu-Lu angrily demanded that Fisher explain himself, tell the truth, or leave. Fisher stood firm, not understanding why he should speak, doubting Wu-Lu's ability to avenge Chi-Chi. Wu-Lu insisted that he did not believe in her sacrifice. Fisher was shocked. Wu-Lu mentioned her single-use escape item, asking why she hadn't used it. Fisher looked confused and suspicious. Wu-Lu probed. Did she not use it, or was she unable to use it? Wu-Lu vaguely said that no restrictions prevented its use. While Fisher was racking his brains, Wu-Lu suggested that someone had prevented Chi-Chi from using it. She would never have run away, abandoning her comrade. He hung her photo, confident that she had not abandoned her team. Wu-Lu's words stunned Fisher, who swore that her team was loyal, staking his life on it. Wu-Lu coldly asked, what if someone used a special device? Fisher, shocked, was speechless. Wu-Lu analyzed that the attacker's special device could double or triple the boss's power through blocking. Fisher realized the seriousness of the problem. Then, she could no longer resist the boss of the void. Wu-Lu emphasized the possibility of a traitor or a mortal enemy. Wu-Lu suggested that there was no traitor or invasion, but that the enemy had simply used a blocking device to lure Chi-Chi's team into a trap. Wu-Lu warned that the blocking device sealed the spatial void, depleting oxygen in 3 minutes, leaving no way out. Wu-Lu wondered why Chi-Chi did not retreat and hand over the device, questioning the intentions behind it. Wu-Lu did not believe that this had not been taken into account. Fisher stammered, knowing how rare the device was. Wu-Lu said sternly that no matter how rare it was, saving a member of the 7 stars was worth it. Fisher slumped, tormented by the fact that he had missed Chi-Chi's mission, distracted by the rescue of the son of a dubious official. He entered the void of level A without abilities, without thinking about the consequences. The investigation revealed that the client had abused his power without being involved in the conspiracy, leaving no evidence that Chi-Chi was the target, so they never found any clues. Then Fisher voiced his doubts about Wu-Lu's convictions. How did he know she hadn't died in battle? Wu-Lu confirmed that Chi-Chi's promise to return was absolute. He believed her. Fisher stood up, now understanding why Chi-Chi trusted Wu-Lu, his voice softening with admiration. He walked over to the corner, picking up a carefully wrapped sword. Fisher unwrapped it, revealing a crimson blade that radiated danger and power. He handed it to Wu-Lu, saying that it was one of Chi-Chi's 2 swords, now returned to her closest relative. Wu-Lu bowed as he accepted it. Unable to hide his deep sorrow, he held her cherished possession. Fisher said that was all he could do, and then Gigi asked if all the team members agreed to the transfer of the sword. Fisher quietly asked if anyone's approval was needed to return the valuables to Chi-Chi's family. Wu-Lu shook his head, clutching the sword tightly, his gaze fixed on it with a mixture of grief and determination. Fisher nodded, stepping back and saying, "Then it's yours. Make her proud." Fisher took a black card out of his pocket and handed it to Wu-Lu. Wu-Lu examined it carefully. Fisher warned him that investigating Chi-Chi's death was beyond his current abilities. He wouldn't even pass the selection process. Fisher challenged him, saying that their fight had not shown his full strength. He hadn't even tried to defeat Gigi. Wu-Lu admitted that if Fisher had fought seriously, he would have lost in one move. Fisher said that resources were scarce at the moment, but he could still help him with something. Wu-Lu looked at the card and remembered that he had been looking for a way to practice more. Internally, Wu-Lu was glad that the card could improve his fencing training. It was a card for entering the fencing training hall. The card had the contact information for Unbreakable, the leader of the fencing dojo. Fisher put on his hat and said before leaving that Chi-Chi's role had been replaced. Then, Wu-Lu's face turned angry, and he asked angrily, "Who?" The scene changed abruptly. Jing-an burst into the cafe, apologizing for being late because of the crazy man, looking embarrassed and tired. Wu-Lu calmly inquired without accusing him. Jing-an smiled awkwardly, and Gigi asked about the incident. Jing-an recounted the frightening attacks by the madman on the streets, which had caused chaos. Surprised by Wu-Lu's calmness, who said that the number of such uncontrollable criminals would grow until the void disappeared. Jing-an agreed, noting that the pressure was causing both ordinary people and investigators to break down. Jing-an asked directly why he had been called. Wu-Lu needed help with throwing knives and equipment. Jing-an thought that the equipment could be obtained through connections, but the knives would be difficult. Wu-Lu sincerely thanked him for giving him time. Jing-an then shyly shared his dream of creating a guild. Wu-Lu asked if there were any problems with selling items. Jing-an denied it, but said that it still attracted attention. Wu-Lu noted that guilds needed 3 members. When the coffee was finished, Jing-an offered Wu-Lu a role in the guild, but the young man said he didn't want to attract attention. Then the young man told him not to worry, because he would arrange everything so that the main character would remain inconspicuous. Wu-Lu shuddered as he stared into the distance at the TV. Jing-an followed his gaze, shocked by the return of his second brother. He had left just recently, and now they had already dodged and were being shown on the air. In the crowd, among all the members of the 7, Chi-Chi and Fisher appeared on the screen. The main character stared at the screen even more intently. His face frowned. Behind him, the guys discussed rumors that Chi-Chi had not been seen for a long time, and that the whole 7 had not been together for a long time. Wu-Lu, pensive, showed no obvious emotions. His mind was immersed in the past. He remembered Fisher's words, that he couldn't say who exactly would play Chi-Chi, but he said that the replacement was the most innocent in the conspiracy. Before leaving, he remembered something else and stopped. Fisher emphasized the importance of the event, saying that even the 7 stars could not change it, then said he would return to the capital. Before leaving, he told Wu-Lu to watch the news and become as strong as the 7 stars in order to change fate. Fisher's words stung, fueling Wu-Lu's helplessness and desire to turn the tables. After all, it would only hurt him more later. The scene returned. Noticing Wu-Lu's anxiety, Jing-an urged him not to let rumors affect him. Wu-Lu smiled, calming down and denying his anger. Wu-Lu switched his focus to training. Jing-an admitted that he had been slacking off because he was busy, but Wu-Lu assured him that there would be no pressure or scolding. Not wanting to talk anymore, Wu-Lu got up, saying he would be away for a few days and would contact him later. Jing-an sat there, thinking that Wu-Lu was still angry and upset. He sighed, sympathizing with Wu-Lu's suffering due to false rumors. He too would not be thrilled about rumors of his brother's death. Finally, the main character arrives at the Unbreakable dojo. Wu-Lu trained tirelessly, sweaty and focused on fencing. The 2 men outside wondered why the coach was personally training Wu-Lu, not knowing who he was. Maybe he was the son of a rich man? They marveled at Wu-Lu's thousands of daily sword swings, wondering why he had chosen this dojo. Was he so strong that he did nothing but swing swords and run? Finally, the coach approached. Wu-Lu greeted him respectfully, and high-noted his fighting height. Please. He mentioned Wu-Lu's half-month basic training, in which he only allowed him to swing swords, and asked if the guy wasn't bored. Wu-Lu understood, no offense. His form was not yet up to par, and Hai smiled mysteriously, asking if he wanted real combat training. Wu-Lu agreed, receiving an official invitation. Wu-Lu was surprised, as the basic training had not been completed. Yihai admitted to his initially low expectations. He also thought the boy was just a rich kid. But Yihai's gaze changed, showing his belief in Wu-Lu's progress. Wu-Lu expressed his sincere gratitude and sought further guidance. Faced with sincerity, Yihai remained silent. He walked over to the sword rack, saying that the essence of fencing could be summed up in one word. Before Wu-Lu could react, Yihai grabbed a sword with lightning speed. The blade slid across Wu-Lu without leaving a scratch, too fast to follow. It plunged into the wall. Wooloo stood in awe of the speed. Yihai, frozen in position, explained that speed was the key. One quick movement could kill any opponent. Wooloo drew his sword, his eyes determined, preparing for his fastest strike at Yihai's signal. He took a stance, raising his sword, assessing Yihai's physique, which was focused on strength. But in reality, one should not judge people by their appearance. Wooloo struck straight ahead, aiming to stun with speed and power. Yihai did not move. Catching the blade with 2 fingers, he mocked Wooloo's hidden resentment and feigned innocence. Laughing, he threw the sword away, asking Wooloo what he was thinking at that moment. Wooloo reflected, acknowledging his weakness, his lack of speed due to his poor foundation. Noting the differences between knives and swords, and Hai laughed, saying that he had passed the threshold of a beginner. Wooloo saw his next path. Statistics appeared. Health 2,974. Attack 1,301. Magic 290. Defense 2,413. Agility 349. Smiling at the system, Wooloo vowed to improve his speed along with his fencing, and Hai asked if he was striving for agility to counter strength. Wooloo replied that he was looking for balance and stability, and Hai nodded, praising his calm, unimpulsive nature. But he frowned, sensing that Wooloo was hiding something complex. Wooloo smiled cautiously, half admitting, half evading with a playful challenge. His coach definitely had the intuition of war. Yihai waved his hand as he left, urging Wooloo to know himself and his path. Wooloo thanked him, receiving a casual invitation to dinner in return. Before disappearing, Yihai warned of a wealthy troublemaker targeting Wooloo. He advised him to hide if it bothered him too much, and then return when he died. The strange warning puzzled and shocked Wooloo. The scene changed. In the spatial void of rank E, damp and dark with slimy moss, a faint light seeped through the cracks. Deep inside, Wooloo appeared, striking the beast with a single blow and cutting off its head. He approached, gathering his prey. The system notified him. 1 red gold wing, 3 mutated meats, 1 scorpion tail. Wooloo read, shocked that the system had noted the meat's lethal toxicity. Confused, he wondered why it had highlighted the meat rather than rare resources or skills. He smashed the red crystal. Notification. The spatial void of the Thunder system has been eliminated. The core has been destroyed. A strange green glow enveloped him. He wondered if the system was afraid he would eat it and die. Why did it mark the meat? He realized that corpses could not be taken out, but could be used in enclosed spaces. Eating toxic meat often killed newbies. But why the warning? Was the system afraid of his ignorance? Or, on the contrary, could he discover a new skill? He entered the teleportation gate. Somewhere else, the phone rang incessantly, displaying Chin's name. After the battle, freshly washed, Wooloo calmly answered Chinji's call. He agreed to help without hesitation, sensing the urgency. Chin asked him to help him tomorrow. He had one request. Upon learning of Chinji's situation, Wooloo sympathized. He took on the task so that Chinji could take his wife to the doctor. Hanging up the phone, Wooloo stared at the photo of Chi-Chi, his gaze pensive. Her radiant smile lingered in his memory. The next day, Chinja's team gathered. The leader greeted Wooloo, assessing his physical condition as not very suitable for their task. The leader gave a briefing on the rules of the D-rank spatial void, advising Wooloo to observe, follow orders, and speak little. After checking his watch, he announced the departure time. The main character was now about to enter a Class D void for the first time. He ordered the team to prepare and enter. Upon entering the spatial void, everyone was stunned by what they saw. They stood in a bizarrely mixed space, unlike any they had seen before. The leader warned them to be careful. Falling meant there was no escape. Wooloo remained silent, extremely vigilant. He knew that ranks D and above could have composite spatial voids with surreal worlds harboring unpredictable dangers. After thinking it over, Wooloo came to the conclusion that the monsters were robots, pointing to an incomplete fusion. There was a loud explosion. The leader rallied the team to remain vigilant and search. There was a boss ahead. Finding nothing, one of the members reported a lack of resources. Another complained that there were only robots, buildings, and motionless ships in the small spatial void. One suggested dismantling the ship, but Wooloo said it was most likely empty. The team member with glasses confirmed that the ship was empty. The leader asked how Wooloo knew this. He said he had read it on the internet, although he was sure that only the boss was of any value. Seeing no benefit, the leader decided to retreat, assuming that the boss was dead, as it was quiet. Indeed, the giant robot lay dead amid black smoke. The team collapsed, exhausted. The gray-haired team member breathed heavily, saying that the robot was too strong for a D-rank boss. Wooloo's team arrived. The gray-haired man asked them to collect the remains. Watching, Wooloo overheard a conversation nearby about destroying the core to retreat. As he approached the core, he thought about how difficult it would be to retrieve the resources in the crowd, regretting the loss of the rare boss. When Lao Tom prepared to destroy the core, a blade pierced his chest, shocking everyone nearby. They turned their gaze to the traitor. Jamin's face was cold and deadly. Lao Tom, in agony, asked why he had been betrayed. His teammates roared, remembering Lao Tom's past help to Jia Ming. Jia Ming coldly said that he had killed Lao Tom quickly out of gratitude, putting him out of his misery. The gray-haired man, enraged, rushed forward with his spear, demanding to know Jia Ming's true identity. Jia Ming easily dodged, demonstrating his complete superiority. In an instant, he finished off his opponent, coldly stepping on the survivors. Throwing off his disguise, he revealed a strange face with the Roman numeral 19 on his cheek, calling himself number 19, his real name being irrelevant. The crowd retreated warily, one trembling and asking if he was from the abyss. Number 19 laughed, intrigued that someone knew about it. Seeing the dire situation, Captain An planned to detain number 19, urging the others to destroy the core and flee, emphasizing the protection of Wooloo according to Chinji's orders. Wooloo, confused, the main character was also concerned for An's safety in this danger, and, determined, insisted that a leader protects his team at all costs. Number 19 sneered at An's attack, mocking the group's weakness. An clenched his weapon, urging his team to seize the chance to survive. He fought fiercely to buy time, but to number 19, he was a meaningless weakling. Number 19's thirst for murder surged, his gaze filled with disgust, seeking to destroy everyone. When An approached, number 19 swung his sword for a fatal blow without hesitation. An, aware of the gap in strength, refused to retreat, meeting the blow with all his might, despite knowing he could not win. At the critical moment, another sword blocked number 19's blow from above. Wooloo rushed forward, covering An, his icy gaze fixed on the enemy. Number 19 smirked mockingly, asking if there were any more predatory insects in their ranks. Wooloo did not answer, ordering An to take the others away, and moved further into the depths. Number 19 smirked, mocking their futile heroism, calling himself a principled villain, and inviting Wooloo to say his last words. Ignoring the mockery, Wooloo sternly asked if he was from the abyss. Number 19 confirmed it without a hint of shame. Wooloo sensed something was wrong, and his expression became pensive. He analyzed the abyss as a cruel group engaged in human trafficking and training cold-blooded killers. The more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed. He recalled Chi-Chi's words, but his thoughts were abruptly interrupted. Number 19 launched a fierce attack, forcing Wooloo to pull himself together, his gaze sharpening with concentration. Seeing Wooloo's calmness, number 19 scolded him for ignoring him. He said he would make him regret his disregard. Wooloo gripped his sword, ready for battle. Number 19 laughed maliciously, calling Wooloo ignorant and not knowing his place. They clashed fiercely, the clang of swords ringing out. The team marveled at Wooloo's superb speed. One of them wondered why such a strong fighter as Wooloo was in logistics, but immediately switched his attention to the core. During the fight, Wooloo was shocked by number 19's overwhelming power, was thrown back, and used his sword to keep his balance. Number 19 gave him no respite, pressing forward with relentless attacks. When the enemy lunged for the finishing blow, Wooloo dodged but was still knocked back. Retreating to regain his footing, Wooloo delivered a precise kick, nearly disarming number 19. He stood firmly on his feet, landing successfully and preparing to counterattack. Seizing the moment, Wooloo struck, surprising number 19, who praised his unexpected strength. Despite the provocation, Wooloo remained calm, quoting that he was facing a villain, and villains die because they talk too much, which annoyed number 19. Enraged, number 19 roared that Wooloo had crossed the line. They collided at high speed, steel ringing in the cave like thunder. Meanwhile, An quietly made her way to the robot's core and destroyed it without hesitation. The team member cried out joyfully, relieved at the chance to escape. Number 19 dropped Wooloo to rush at them. Wooloo shouted a warning to An, who shielded the team, yelling at them to run. Wooloo pursued number 19, preventing him from reaching the others. As he approached, number 19 turned around and attacked. Wooloo quickly ducked. Counterattacking, Wooloo delivered a powerful blow with his sword and blood spurted. The main character managed to strike number 19, leaving a deep diagonal cut. He decided not to stop there and spun a powerful whirlwind in front of the villain. He hit him with such force that number 19 flew a couple of dozen meters away, knocked out, crashing into the ground. Without stopping, Wu-Lu reached the core, turning around and urging the team to leave the void. Before he could finish, Anne shouted for Wu-Lu to run immediately. Thinking that number 19 had been defeated, he saw him appear like a ghost, enraged by their premature celebration. Without giving Wu-Lu time to react, he pierced him through, causing Wu-Lu to cry out in pain. Wu-Lu clung to the sword piercing him, trying to resist, which further enraged number 19. Number 19 taunted him, saying that Wu-Lu was unworthy of their victory feast. He would never be able to celebrate again. Despite the contempt, Wu-Lu twisted his arm with the sword and struck number 19 in the throat, hitting a vital spot. But when he saw what happened next, his eyes widened. Unperturbed, number 19 laughed eerily, chilling Wu-Lu's soul and reminding him of the grim fate of the last person who had insulted him. Under the cold moonlight, number 19's body burst into purple flames and vanished, leaving Wu-Lu in horror as Anne begged him to run. Before he could react, a cold sword pierced Anne from behind. Number 19 appeared behind Anne, laughing and telling Wu-Lu that he was lucky. The blow was not fatal. He contemptuously threw the body down, pretending to be kind, and he said that he himself had made the blow non-lethal. Wu-Lu froze, frightened by number 19's unnatural ability, suspecting a special power in the system. There were 8 basic types in the system. Wu-Lu had enhancement, but number 19 had something uniquely different. He remembered that the category with special features was the most difficult to evaluate and standardize. In pain and fear, Wu-Lu calculated that if number 19's clone possessed 2/3 of his strength, even a single clone would leave Wu-Lu with only a 10% chance of victory. Hearing this, number 19 smiled but showed interest in Wu-Lu's knowledge. Time was running out. Another clone of number 19 emerged from the fog, coldly dragging 2 of Wu-Lu's comrades. The bastard said that the most interesting part was just beginning. He threw them aside like trash, offering a cruel choice. Either Wu-Lu would die, or they would. Although wounded, Anne shouted at Wu-Lu to run. The 2 comrades begged him not to leave them to die. Wu-Lu stood torn between life and death, his thoughts confused, unable to make up his mind. Looking at him, number 19 said he would give him exactly 1 minute. If he still couldn't decide, they would all die anyway. Suddenly, the main character glanced at the teleportation gate, hoping to escape. Number 19, reading his intention, approached him and grabbed him by the arm and whispered venomously not to do anything stupid, watching his every breath. Wu-Lu clenched his teeth, without taking his eyes off his desperate comrades. Remembering Chi-Chi's mysterious death and unfinished business, he couldn't fall now. Wu-Lu gathered all his strength, looking for a way out. Number 19 arrogantly threatened, setting conditions and starting the countdown. Now they stood facing number 19. He held the hostages, saying that the main character had 30 seconds left. Anne tried his best to find a way out, despite his exhaustion, and weakly warned him. His words enraged number 19, who raised his sword threateningly. Without hesitation, he attacked his frightened comrades. The others screamed, but the attack continued. Number 19 covered his ears and said they were too noisy, like pigs at a slaughterhouse. Wu-Lu shouted, stopping number 19's deadly blow. Number 19 stopped, satisfied but still alert. Wu-Lu offered himself in exchange for number 19 letting the others go. Number 19 asked if he had heard him correctly. Wu-Lu asked why he was laughing. Or was he afraid that the guy would just kill himself? Number 19 sneered, claiming he was showing mercy by doubting Wu-Lu's survival. He would not be able to escape him. Wu-Lu stood firm, challenging him a few inches from the gate. Number 19 snorted, accusing Wu-Lu of selfishly saving himself. Wu-Lu calmly parried, vowing that nothing would stop him on his chosen path. He would kill these people anyway. He exposed number 19's intention to sow discord, for he never planned to spare anyone. He said that the guy wasn't good enough at his job. His harsh words enraged number 19, who lost his composure. While number 19 was raging, Wu-Lu signaled his team to retreat. The group helped each other escape from the dangerous battlefield. One of them looked back, his eyes full of anxiety, urging Wu-Lu to survive. Number 19 roared, challenging Wu-Lu to a fight to the death. Clutching his sword, he rushed into the attack, intent on ending it all with force. His attack was overwhelmingly powerful, but Wu-Lu gracefully dodged it. Wu-Lu counterattacked with a shining blow, hitting his target precisely. The fight became more and more fierce, with neither side giving in. Another clone attacked from behind, but the main character managed to dodge and even deflect a couple of his quick blows. A sudden kick from number 19 knocked Wooloo off balance, and he crashed hard into the stone with his back. Then he looked up in horror and quickly dodged the blow delivered by the red-eyed monster. But before he could run even a meter away, number 19 appeared in front of him again. He struck him again with his splash attack, and the main character had to jump out of the way. But another clone was waiting behind him, ready to kill. But the main character kicked one clone and pushed off the other, parrying and blocking the attack right in the air. After they crossed swords, number 19 turned to the main character and asked, "Is that all you can do?" And the main character's sword immediately pierced the body of the dissolving villain. Before Wooloo could react, number 19 approached with his sword raised, coldly declaring that the game was over. He was tired of playing. The blade came down hard, striking Wooloo in the back with the sword. At the same time, another clone kicked him in the side. This blow sent the main character flying several dozen meters, slamming his back against the wall. His body staggered, blood gushed out, and he could not resist. Wooloo tried to get up, curling up in a ball, trembling, his eyes barely staying open. He was exhausted. When he finally collapsed, number 19 began to gloat over his victory. Number 19 came closer and said that he had prepared a special punishment for such freaks, grabbing him by the scruff of his neck and dragging Wooloo like trash, and threw him in front of the gate. Wooloo lay motionless, unable to fight, ridiculed by poisonous words. But then he decided to give the guy a chance after all. Number 19 curled his lips into a smirk, challenging the hero, as if playing with Wooloo's life. He would let the guy go if he could climb up there. Wooloo's mind was clouded, driven by one thought: to survive. Suddenly, an image of his younger sister appeared, calling his name in a childish voice. A vicious kick to the chest knocked the breath out of him, along with the pain. Number 19 laughed maniacally, mercilessly mocking him, and shouting that he thought the main character was not afraid of death. He pressed down on him with his foot with particular force and cruelty, shouting for him to get up. The exit was right in front of him. Despite his severe injuries, Wooloo staggered forward, and with his last ounce of strength, reached for the exit, desperately wanting to live. Number 19 watched this and said it was just disgusting. At the height of the tension, a child's voice asked for permission to pass. This surprised the villain. Number 19 turned around and met the gaze of a girl with icy eyes. She asked him to move aside, because she was going home. He smirked insultingly, asking how he could let such a bug pass. The girl said she was not a bug and asked him again to let her pass. Her words amused him, and he set an absurd condition: kill him in order to pass. The girl sighed heavily, tired of all this drama, and said wearily that it seemed she had no choice but to kill him. Her gaze cut like a blade, expressing cold reproach. She said the guy was overdoing it. Before number 19 could finish, a red line appeared on his neck, and a quick, lightning-fast, deadly blow of the sword separated his head from his body. It rolled across the ground, lifeless. Wooloo stared, speechless, in disbelief. The girl crouched down, and her voice, soft but frighteningly innocent, asked if she should kill him too. She looked up, asking if that would allow her to leave. Her gaze was incredibly clear. Wooloo struggled to his feet, assuring her that he would not stop her. The girl stared at him without saying anything, and an awkward pause ensued. Finally, the girl broke the silence and asked why the guy wasn't giving way. This confused him, but in the end, Wooloo sincerely thanked her. The girl denied that she had saved him, prompting him to ask her name. Smiling brightly, she introduced herself as Xiao Xiao, playfully demanding meat. Wooloo sighed helplessly, agreeing but saying that he needed to go home first. She firmly corrected him, insisting that he also feed her meat. Later at the restaurant, Xiao Xiao happily devoured her steak. She ate everything that was served, leaving not a crumb behind. Wooloo, annoyed, ordered more, but the restaurant had run out of steaks. He demanded 5 or 10 servings of any meat. The table with hot meat dishes arrived quickly. Xiao Xiao's eyes lit up, and she ate as if she had been starving for an eternity. The guy watched with joy, glad that he was able to please the little girl, while the waitress barely had time to take away the empty plates. Suddenly, Wooloo coughed violently, and blood spurted from his mouth. Xiao Xiao stopped, asking anxiously why he wasn't going to get treatment. He was dying right now. He remained silent. He didn't leave because of her gaze, desperately begging him for another serving of meat. Her gaze reminded him of Chi-Chi, squeezing his heart. Back then, she hadn't dared to ask for anything. He gently handed her a napkin, assuring her that there was enough food and that she didn't need to rush. Someone interrupted them and said that this guy really was a good person. A stranger appeared, smiling familiarly and patting Xiao Xiao, saying that they hadn't seen each other in a long time. Why had she ignored him for so long? Glancing at the table laden with meat, he jokingly remarked that such delicious food was worth enduring the snub. Wu Lu asked who he was. He introduced himself as Ouyang Shi from the Gongga organization. Wu Lu frowned when he learned of the unique reputation of Gongga. He invited him to eat if he was hungry. Wu Lu instantly received Ouyang Shi's willing consent. Without hesitation, he sat down, ready to join the meat feast, and even took the meat intended for the girl. Xiao Xiao innocently asked if he wanted to eat her meat, and then the man said that the kind uncle would buy more if necessary. Gigi was shocked. Faced with an awkward moment, Wu Lu smiled crookedly, agreeing to let them eat. Wu Lu ordered more, happy that he could afford it. He had brought money with him. Xiao Xiao and Ouyang Shi devoured the tempting food without hesitation. After eating their fill, they groaned, delighted with such a rare feast. Ouyang Shi asked Wu Lu's name, while the protagonist wondered if all members of the Gongga clan were such gluttons. Upon learning his name, Ouyang Shi smiled, for he knew it well. The protagonist was surprised and asked how he knew it. The guy replied that Yao Guang's brother was well known in their circle. Wu Lu, surprised, asked about Qiqi. Were they acquainted with her? The guy replied that she was often shown on television and that everyone in their country knew her. While he was wondering what else the guy knew, Ouyang Shi noticed that Xiao Xiao was nodding off and said it was time to leave. He invited Wu Lu to stay for his kindness, but Wu Lu politely declined in order to return home. Ouyang Shi smiled and advised him not to be overly cautious, lest he become a loner. He explained that they respected his privacy and that joining them was his choice. The group left the restaurant and headed for a mysterious abandoned building. Ouyang Shi carried Xiao Xiao, welcoming Wu Lu to the Gongga base. Inside, the girl lying down smelled the food, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. She jumped up, shouting joyfully at the sight of the meat. Ouyang Shi, accustomed to this, threw her a bag full of meat. She caught it easily, jumping up from the sofa and grinning as if she had won a prize. Ouyang Shi asked if she was alone here. Xiao Shui said that she was the only one at home, and the others were looking for Xiao Xiao. Seeing the food, Xiao Shui's eyes lit up, and she couldn't contain her curiosity. She looked questioningly at Wu Lu. Where did he get the money? Ouyang Shi introduced the main character to her as the benefactor who brought the food. Xiao Shui looked closely, sensing something familiar. Ouyang Shi guessed that she had met Wu Lu's sister. Suddenly, she rushed towards Wu Lu, startling him with her speed. Touching his face, Xiao Shui denied that she had met him. Ouyang Shi clarified that she had only met his sister. Mysteriously, he revealed that his sister was a genius who had taken her place, Yao Guang, or Qiqi. Xiao Shui stared at him, realizing that he was the brother of that famous girl. Wu Lu sternly asked what she knew. Xiao Shui casually said that he was already quite famous. Wu Lu gritted his teeth, saying that his fame was nothing but ridicule. He was called a slacker, or a parasite, on Qiqi's body. She shocked him by calling him the complete opposite of Qiqi. She explained that Zhao Guang's tolerance was mistaken for weakness. But one day, someone insulted Wu Lu to embarrass her. Zhao Guang killed him instantly. Ouyang Shi added that Zhao Guang said nothing, but her actions showed how important Wu Lu was in her life. The words choked Wu Lu's throat, and Qiqi's name echoed in his heart. Xiao Shui sensed his mood and gently scolded Ouyang Shi for putting pressure on him. Ouyang Shi shrugged, saying he only wanted Wu Lu to know about Qiqi's connections as he was too wary. Xiao Shui compared Wu Lu to Zhao Guan's mild description, denying any resemblance. Ouyang Shi said that at first he thought Zhao Guan was exaggerating about her brother. Wu Lu was a prickly hedgehog. Wu Lu snapped back, refusing to accept other people's definitions of himself. Xiao Shui, unperturbed, told the young man that it was not a condemnation, but a statement of fact. She asked him to think about why Qiqi was so strong. She said that toughness would not help achieve goals if it was filled with hatred. Wu Lu fell silent, deep in thought. Moments later, he turned, thanked them, and left. Ignoring Xiao Shui's question about his injuries, he coldly withdrew, refusing help, and vowing to handle everything himself. Ouyang Shi teased Xiao Shui for her harshness. She countered by asking why he had provoked others. He shrugged, saying he wanted to expose Wu Lu. Xiao Shui picked up the cloth bag, saying she wasn't thoughtless, she just didn't care. Finally, the girl sat down in a chair. Looking at Ouyang Shi, she said that prices had risen sharply recently, and that Xiao Xiao hadn't eaten a proper meal in a long time. Ouyang Shi softened, planning to look for more, but Xiao Shui objected, worried about his mental state. Ouyang Shi changed the subject, saying that at first he thought the young man was exploiting Xiao Xiao, but then he learned that he was a relative of Zhao Guan, with good intentions. Referring to Xiao Xiao, he said that she was the leading candidate for the role of Zhao Guan, noting that Xiaoxue still admired her despite the events. Xiaoxue thought for a moment, her face reflecting her inner struggle. She said she did not hold a grudge against her. Ouyang Shi said that he didn't hate her either, and that he even liked her. Plus, he knew how much what had happened to her had hurt her. He said that was why he brought Gigi, so that she could help him meet Qiqi's relative. He smiled, hoping that the young man understood her heart. And then the girl said that was enough. The scene changed abruptly to the city at night. The young man was walking alone on a quiet road. Passing by a bakery, the children's glances stirred his heart. They wanted something, but they had no money. They brought back memories of his sister and days gone by. Back then, his sister had looked at the bakery with fiery determination and desire. Then she turned to him and promised to achieve a better life for them. He smiled, believing that she would succeed and make him happy. Remembering Xiaoshue's words, he sighed wearily. She said that he was not at all what his sister had imagined him to be. His heavy footsteps led him to a quiet corner of the park. The main character thought that maybe he had really gone too far. Sitting there, he reflected on his investigation and training since the tragedy of Qiqi. In just a few months in this profession, he had seen countless betrayals and lies, as well as cruel acts and murders. And yet some lived selflessly, without ulterior motives. Looking up at the starry sky, Wu Lu sighed. His eyes showed hesitation. The image of Qiqi immediately appeared in his mind, reproaching him for his pessimism. He smiled as he talked to the memory. She silently reproached him for his negativity, for thinking too long about the bad things. Her words stunned him, and he realized his lack of faith in humanity. Wu Lu lowered his gaze, his voice heavy, admitting that his experiences had destroyed his trust. She understood better. She insisted firmly that no matter what the circumstances, people were not absolutely evil, urging him to believe. With determined eyes, she said that the diversity of the world comes from different souls, and brave hearts inspire her to change it all. She vowed not to give up, striving to spread positivity, hoping that he too would believe in humanity. Her words touched him. He nodded firmly in agreement. His spirits lifted and he patted his cheeks, admitting that he hated suspicion, but continues to doubt others. It was his first reaction to any stranger. Looking at Qiqi's photo, he thought that his continued distrust would make him his own worst enemy. Determination surged as he thought of her dream of changing the world. He stood up, his eyes burning, whispering her name, admitting his loneliness without her. Walking through the park, he accepted the future. He did not like this world without Qiqi, remembering her desire in the midst of a world of intrigue. His gaze became firm, and he vowed to restore faith in humanity, just as she had hoped. The next day they reached the abandoned slums, where life had almost died out. Tired people sat on the sidewalk, their eyes lifeless. Jing-an looked around, silently taking in the scene. Wu Lu spoke, teasing Jing-an's shock. Jing-an stammered, asking if this was his friend's house. Jing-an apologized. Wu Lu laughed, saying it wasn't his fault. The boy wanted to argue, but suddenly a child crashed into Wu Lu with force. He supported him, gently warning him to run more slowly so as not to fall. The child looked up, praising his appearance, eagerly asking about the outside world. The innocent questions touched Jing-an, who was moved by the child's purity. The boy smiled, asking if he would grow up to be handsome and be able to travel freely. Wu Lu patted him on the head, promising him a bright future. His mother's anxious call rang out. The boy turned around, smiling warmly, and asked Wu Lu not to keep his mother waiting. Running away and waving his hand, the child said goodbye cheerfully. Wu Lu walked ahead, sensing Jing-an's confusion, assuring him that it was not his fault. They moved through the bustling street crowd and stopped in front of an old, weathered gate. Jing-an asked curiously, but Wu Lu pointed sternly inside. Jing-an froze at the sight inside. The ragged people looked like wandering ghosts. There was no life in their eyes, only empty emptiness. Jing-an, shocked, muttered, unable to believe that they were imprisoned. Wu Lu told him to stay behind. Before Jing-an could react, the old man lunged at him with wild eyes, stunning him. The boy fainted. The crowd screamed, hungry for food, like mindless beasts. Wu Lu coldly mocked those who actually ran the place. He named groups such as the Investigators Guild and the 7 Stars, saying that no one could control it. He hurriedly took Jing-an away, leaving behind pitiful cries. They found a quiet bench to recover. Jing-an, shaken, asked why he had been brought here. Wu Lu parried by asking how he felt after what he had seen. Jing-an, lost, showed uncertainty in his eyes. He admitted that he didn't know such places existed until he left home and saw it with his own eyes. Hesitantly, he asked if he was too naive. Wu Lu calmly said that Qiqi was born here and that it wasn't always so gloomy. He emphasized that naivety was not shameful. Even he, knowing the reality, had once ignored its cruelty. Wulu's eyes became pensive as he explained that the world was divided into 4 regions based on class. There was a district for the rich, a district for people like them, and a poor district where they had just been. Jing-an was shocked. Jing-an asked the name of the last region. Wulu stood up and said that it had no name, but people called it a graveyard for souls with no way out. Jing-an asked why they were locked in. Wulu told him to ask his brother, leaving the suggestive question before leaving. Wulu walked on, his eyes pensive on the dark road. 3 days later, a luxurious mansion sparkled. Li Changfeng entered, his face stern and cold. The room lit up. It illuminated a tired teenager on the floor, defeated. Li Changfeng looked at his brother, angrily questioning his methods. Jing-an raised his head, reproaching him for waiting 3 days. The words briefly stopped Li Changfeng in his tracks. The nearest closet suddenly opened. Turning away, Li Changfeng asked dryly. He asked how his brother was doing, but Jing-an immediately demanded an answer as to why people were being kept in cages in the cemetery, recounting the horrific scene. His brother paused, then spoke calmly. He called them criminals, Jing-an repeated doubtfully. Li Changfeng explained. After the chaos, they took advantage of the commotion for profit, without regard for the consequences. He moved closer and asked if the guy thought it was cruel. With an icy stare, he emphasized that their monstrous crimes had killed thousands, which had been ignored due to apathy or incompetence. Jing-an stood stunned, his mind flooded with questions and doubts. Li Changfeng said that the poor among them hated them the most, which shocked Jing-an. The scene was transported back 27 years, with the imprisoned people shouting, begging for release and claiming their innocence. Outside, angry crowds demanded execution, condemning the government's inaction. They shouted that the prisoners deserved to die, questioning their right to live. Behind the seething crowd, a naive child asked his mother why they were in prison. The mother, enraged, called them beasts in human form. She recounted how 3 decades ago, when the voids appeared, they became bloodthirsty. They used force to rob and maim civilians without mercy. A desperate victim begged for his life in agony. The attackers only grinned, responding with utter cruelty. Amid the chaos, a little girl ran from the nightmare. Seeing her loved ones fall, she trembled, praying for survival. Returning to the main character. Chaos reigned in the D-rank void space. Monsters ran rampant. Wulu stood in the midst of the horror, coldly facing reality. He realized that this void space had originated from real history. Only intelligent beings were simulated here. The rest mirrored the events of the past. Wulu walked forward, fearless. Like an archaeologist in a war zone, he studied the traces of the catastrophe. Suddenly, the crazed people rushed to attack, aggressively waving their weapons. With his excellent reflexes, Wulu dodged effortlessly. Suddenly, 3 huge, terrifying monsters appeared before him, radiating a thirst for murder. Wulu moved like an elusive wind amid their attacks. In the blink of an eye, he struck like Mike Tyson. The blow destroyed the monster's massive body and threw it into the other 2 beasts. Wulu landed, ready for battle. His gaze fell on a distant girl, wondering if she was the leader of the void, the boss. Looking at the corpse below, he was shocked to see a familiar face consumed by the boss. He realized that this void could store memories and events. These memories were stuck until they were fully resolved, and many had failed here. The girl turned, bloody tears streaming down her cheeks. Her face was deathly pale, her eyes like black holes, blood running down her face. Her broken voice, icy, asked, "Who is this?" "Get out." Wulu froze before the anger in her small figure. The girl lunged forward, swinging her weapon wildly, filled with a thirst for murder. Wulu drew his sword, parrying deftly, as if anticipating her movements. His face remained calm, radiating unyielding determination. He counterattacked with a precise sword strike. Despite her supernatural reflexes, she dodged completely, her eyes burning with determination. Clenching her weapon, she launched a vicious attack on him, shouting to destroy everything. Wulu retreated from her blade with his usual calm. Seizing the moment, he grabbed her small legs, ready to strike back, and with one decisive, powerful movement, he knocked her to the ground. The tiny girl struggled to her feet, screaming with rage and conflicting emotions. With a knife in her hand, she rushed forward with hate-filled, murderous eyes. The battle was evenly matched, with neither side giving ground. Sparks flew around them from the multiple clashes of swords. Wulu realized that his dead comrades behind him were a burden. She kicked powerfully, crushing obstacles in her path. Turning around, she smiled maliciously, her eyes cold as ice. She began to materialize a knife in her other hand, and she struck forward with great force. Wooloo instinctively dodged her lightning-fast attack. He quickly pulled a sharp dagger from under his cloak. Unperturbed, his gaze was fixed ahead. He swung his arm, and the dagger flew with incredible pressure and speed. Before she could turn around, Wooloo appeared behind her. A precise slashing blow caught her off guard. He struck the boss girl in the back. Her fragile body collapsed to the ground. He finished her off with his signature kick. Standing on the ground, the guy realized that blood was oozing from his chest, and the pain made him tremble. But a mysterious poison spread from the wound, horrifying Wooloo. This boss had used a deadly poison. It was unclear whether it was intentional or not. Wooloo's voice became harsh, his eyes cold, and he decided to act quickly. Suddenly, Chi-Chi's tearful face appeared, weakly asking him if he was really going to kill her. Wooloo froze, his heart trembling at the familiar image. His sword froze at her throat. The boy stopped. Chi-Chi sobbed and begged, her words full of despair and accusation. She asked if it was wrong to want to live. She desperately asked for help. Despite her words, a distorted smile flashed across her face. Coldly, Wooloo lowered his sword, his eyes expressionless. And so, he finished her off. Her head fell, turning back into the head of a monster girl, her eyes wide open with frozen hatred. Wooloo whispered, his voice quiet, condemning her crimes. He asked, "Did you kill all these people with the same deception?" But then he grabbed his head and sighed, reminding himself to carry antidotes with. Touching her body, he felt a sudden sense of unease. A sound rang out, notifying him of an unopened letter and a mysterious invitation. Wooloo frowned, not believing what he had heard. Looking at the motionless corpse, he decided to leave first and said he would look at everything later. His foot caught on a small obstacle, stopping him in his tracks. Losing his balance, Wooloo fell, confusion flashing in his eyes. His hand touched the stranger, triggering a new notification about receiving a mysterious book. Stunned, he muttered doubts about the existence of this skill. His mind clouded. He wondered if the bosses were fighting for power. The distorted atmosphere made everything seem unreal. Staggering to his feet, he forced himself to flee from this rift immediately. Unnoticed alerts flashed endlessly in the background. A cold warning appeared. Someone is watching you. The scene abruptly shifted to the luxurious mansion of the Lee family. Someone asked, "Will everything be okay?" Jing-an clutched his phone, saying that the guy had been like this for 4 days, and insistently begging someone to come back quickly. Pushing open the door, his eyes lit up when he saw that the occupant of the room had woken up. He exclaimed joyfully, delighted that his main character had finally regained consciousness. Wooloo rubbed his head, dazed, as if waking from a dream. Looking around, he asked where he was. Jing-an smiled warmly. He was at his house. Jing-an sat down and told him how he had found Wooloo unconscious, arranged for treatment, and brought him home. Wooloo quietly thanked him. Jing-an expressed his hope that he would not be blamed for his unilateral decision. He then said that the young man had been unconscious for 4 days. Jing-an asked anxiously why Wooloo had been so badly poisoned. The doctor said that the protagonist would have died if they hadn't intervened in time. Wooloo remained silent, his gaze absent. Jing-an clarified that he did not want to be intrusive. Changing the subject, Wooloo asked about the guild Jing-an had mentioned, and said that all that was left was to name it, and he entrusted this task to the main character. Wooloo sternly asked why he was being helped, since he had a brother, Lee Chung-feng, who was a much more powerful warrior. These words stunned Jing-an, his eyes betraying obvious panic. His grip tightened. His voice became quiet. And Wooloo listened attentively, as he confessed after long deliberation. He confessed his desire to step out of his brother's shadow, not wanting to remain dependent forever. Emotions flooded him as he recounted how he had once considered giving up all attempts, resigning himself to the fate of a parasite. But meeting Wooloo inspired him with unyielding determination and strength. He wondered if being around such a person could make him better. Pausing, he awkwardly asked Wooloo if he was stupid, receiving a direct answer, "Yes, quite an idiot." Seeing that Jing-an was about to cry, Wooloo softened, praising his precious sincerity. "So never underestimate yourself again." Jing-an stirred, his eyes shining, and called Wooloo by name. Wooloo smiled faintly, saying that the future of the alliance depended on Jing-an. He was delighted to learn the name of the guild, the Seven Dragons Alliance, when Wooloo mentioned a recent trip to the Silent Realm. The remark shocked Jing-an, who anxiously asked if Wooloo had gone alone. Wooloo nodded, and the young man beamed, praising his incredible skill. Jing-an bowed his head, his eyes shining with curiosity as he asked about Wooloo's current level. Before the answer came, they were interrupted by a phone call. Jing-an hurried out to answer it, urging Wooloo to rest. Wulu nodded calmly, saying to call or text if necessary. Jing'an smiled, agreed, and said he would bring him some medicine before leaving. After that, Wulu returned to his small apartment. In front of him was a wall covered with photos of his sister, full of memories. His gaze expressed deep emotion as he whispered to Chi-Chi to hang in there a little longer. The items from the Silent Realm were neatly laid out on the table. He wondered if only the quality of the object remained after leaving the Silent Realm. Holding the letter suspiciously, he carefully opened the envelope as if afraid of smudging the ink. Inside was an elegant handwritten letter, in which everyday reflections mingled with the loneliness and hope of an unnamed girl. Sent to a distant friend, holding it, Wulu was shocked to realize that it could have been written just before the formation of the Silent Realm. He thought deeply, suspecting that these genuine emotions had shaped the boss's lively, fierce nature. Then he picked up the item Tears of Resentment. Its effect made all monsters see the user as an enemy. Wulu sighed, muttering about its pure but suffocating hatred. Although it was risky, he thought that if used at the right time, it could turn the tide. However, the last item stunned Wulu with a surprise. A special invitation. It could force any entity in the Silent Realm to appear next to the user, Wulu muttered, his eyes flashing with amazement as he discovered an item capable of breaking the rules of the Silent Realm. He put the letter aside, thinking that this item was not just a salvation, but the key to continuing his conquest. Its value surpassed simple escape. His movements froze, as if a memory had suddenly surfaced. His eyes widened as he realized something important. There were no limits to the goals of the call. Looking again at the wall with the photographs, his gaze mixed doubt and longing. Could it summon those who had passed away? A spark of hope flared. Could it bring back Chi-Chi? He smiled faintly, excitement surging as if he had seized a fragile chance. He jumped up from his chair, his passion burning like a man who had regained hope. But a sudden collision with the table stunned him. A sharp pain spread through his body, dampening his excitement. Wulu froze, shocked. He sighed to himself that even if he summoned the spirit, he would not be able to see it. Exhausted, he collapsed into a chair, deciding to continue his journey through the Silent Realm to find an item that would allow him to see the departed. He remembered that such an item had appeared at an auction. The starting price for this item was at least tens of millions. Using Chi-Chi's assets, he could afford it, but he didn't dare to sell it. Holding the skill book, he leaned back and sighed wearily. The item was valuable, but it could cause problems if people found out about it. Staring at the book, he sank into confused thoughts. He lifted it in front of him. Then he pulled it closer. His hand touched the cover of the book. A strange energy slowly seeped into his body. A notification appeared in front of him, activating an unknown ability. The next morning, a man appeared before Wulu, skeptical of what he had heard in the previous call. Wulu calmly confirmed it, causing Chinza to sigh. Noting his great changes, but worrying about solo raids, Wulu smiled confidently, assuring him that he would not risk his life. Chinza shook his head helplessly. Suddenly, Chinza frowned, sensing something was wrong. He suspected that Wulu's request for a support team was part of a larger plan. Wulu admitted that he wanted to study the Silent Realm more deeply. Chinza doubted the simple explanation, believing that Wulu was hiding his true purpose. Wulu laughed, openly admitting his deception. His real goal was to infiltrate and study the environment of the Silent Kingdom. Wulu's honesty and smile left Chinza with no room for further doubt. Chinza smiled, pointing to the gate behind him. It was a D-rank Silent Realm that he had secured for Wulu. Gigi said he would repay him, but Chinza smiled, saying that he was just lucky. Advising Wulu to join a large guild for stable resources in the Silent Realm, Wulu smiled confidently, saying that it was enough for now. Chinza asked about his teammates, and he replied that they would arrive late. Glancing at his watch, Chinza left, skeptical because of unresolved issues. Before leaving, he mentioned Chi-Chi, noting that she had not been home for a long time, as if she would never return. Wulu smiled faintly, saying that she was busy and wasn't sure when she would return. Chinza told him to bring Chi-Chi to dinner when she returned, waving goodbye. Wulu replied sincerely. As soon as the man left, Wulu's smile disappeared, replaced by fatigue and anxiety. He stared silently ahead, vowing silently to find Chi-Chi by any means necessary. Passing through the gates of the Silent Realm, his heart held only the determination to bring back a piece of his sister's soul. The scene changed. Monsters waited inside the gate. The scene before him was completely chaotic. Buildings burned in flames, mingling with black smoke and furious roars. Wulu was briefly shocked by the abnormal scene, Unlike a typical D rank, he accidentally stepped on something, making a quiet sound. The noise instantly attracted the attention of the nearest monsters. They roared, rushing at the main character with their weapons. Wooloo reacted lightning fast, jumping deftly to dodge the attacks. He kicked the enemy hard, sending him flying. However, the number of monsters caused him to hesitate. His sword glowed, each swing cutting through the air. Suddenly, a monster attacked from behind with unexpected speed. Wooloo let out a quiet cry of pain as the pain spread through his body. He rolled over to dodge the next blow. His eyes widened as the monsters grew fiercer. Attacking relentlessly, Wooloo gritted his teeth, clearly concerned about the situation, but did not retreat. Releasing a whirlwind-like slashing blow forward, he grabbed the head of the defeated monster. He threw it back at another with force, like an arrow or a stone. Although fearless, the monsters roared wildly. One of them cut down all the beasts in front of him to get to the main character. The monster's face burned with rage, but its attacks could not touch the main character. Wooloo dodged with smooth movements and at high speed. He counterattacked with sharp sword strikes, striking terror into his enemies. Soon, the entire group of monsters lay defeated at his feet. Wooloo gasped, doubting that this was just a silent realm of rank D. He cautiously looked around, his gaze serious. This dungeon was not rank D. Sitting down, he began to collect items from the monsters' corpses. A notification showed the amount of bones and meat he had obtained. To his surprise, he found rare items such as beast armor and a piece of white jade which caught his attention. A roar sounded from behind, and a ferocious creature with sharp claws rushed to attack. However, Wooloo counterattacked swiftly, thrusting his sword back into the monster's body with force and defeating it without even turning around. He noted to himself that these materials were rare and could only be obtained in small quantities. Only a portion of the resources could be taken in a single sortie. He meant that each trip to the Silent Realm limited the collection of items. Had the rules changed? Wooloo walked on, wondering why no Silent Realm allowed multiple returns. If his theory was correct, what caused this change? A smoky, ruined space stretched out before him. Wooloo moved forward, glancing around the scene as if weighing something. Suddenly, he stopped, his eyes frozen in shock. In front of him, a small beast was surrounded by threatening giant creatures. The captured creature with snow-white fur and orange stripes was ready to fight back. The monster's thirst for blood thickened the air. Wooloo thought that all knowledge of the Silent Realm came at a bloody price. If the rules changed without his knowledge, it was a tragic result. The beast was attacked fiercely. 3 huge monsters approached, their faces contorted with menace. Despite its wounds, the fox stood, and its unwavering gaze made Wooloo question the true nature of the Silent Realm. The monster grinned maliciously, raising its claws above the small creature. The fox panicked and ran away, its eyes filled with fear. Wooloo frowned, thinking about changing the rules. When the fox ran up to him, folding its paws in a plea for help, making him understand that it was seeking protection. At that moment, the monsters approached, their aura fierce. The fox trembled, clinging to Wooloo's leg, tears streaming from its eyes. Wooloo, annoyed, ordered the creature to let go of him. The fox's bright eyes, full of hope, softened his heart. A memory from the past flashed through his mind. It was his beloved sister again. Wooloo sighed quietly, his gaze uncertain. Suddenly, the monsters let out painful cries. In an instant, the 3 ferocious beasts were defeated and fell silent. Wooloo reached out and grabbed the little fox. Coldly tossing it back, he said he would not kill it, but ordered it to leave. Moving forward, he was surprised that the fox did not run away, but quietly followed him. Later, Wooloo stopped in front of a strange area surrounded by flickering flames. In the center, strange patterns were carved into the ground. A shadow emerged from the smoke, its red eyes and sharp teeth looking menacing. Wooloo flinched slightly at the unexpected situation. Without hesitation, he rushed into the attack, flashing his sword. The fox followed him in panic, and now they were rushing at each other with the same goal, to win at all costs. The battle erupted instantly. Words were unnecessary. The skeleton delivered a direct blow. Forcing Wooloo to parry with his sword, the monster's arm was knocked far to the side. The fight became more and more fierce, both exchanging blows. Fox stood and watched in shock. One side attacked mercilessly. The other defended steadfastly. Gigi hit so hard that the armor literally crumbled right on the monster. And finally, Wooloo prepared a decisive kick, but the monster just smiled eerily. Its eyes flashed with malice, its claws ready to strike. Wooloo froze in surprise, but thanks to his quick reaction, he plunged his sword into the ground, then jumped back, dodging the deadly blow. After landing, Wooloo analyzed the characteristics of his enemy's weapon, but the creature fought with its body and hidden weapons. Wooloo took a defensive stance, extremely alert. He suddenly lunged forward, aiming for an old wound on the monster's shoulder. One hand tightly gripped the enemy's bony arm, and the protagonist tensed, gritting his teeth in pain. Then he delivered a powerful blow, pulling the monster's arm out. The monster lost its balance and collapsed. At that moment, Wooloo raised his sword. He swung decisively and struck the sword right into the vulnerable spot. But, to his shock, his eyes widened and he cried out in disbelief. Incredibly, the monster's neck was the hardest part, completely blocking the sword. Suddenly, sharp bone spikes shot out from its body toward Wooloo. The monster's form distorted. Jagged bones sprouted, exuding a strange black mist. The system announced that the Skeleton King boss had entered its second phase. The boss's body was rebuilt. A black mist with a purple tint enveloped its sturdy bones, making it more deadly. The scene suddenly shifted to the past, with Chi-Chi dangling her legs like in a Tarantino movie. She was lying on the sofa and telling Wooloo that the Silent Kingdom resembled a dungeon from an online game. She smiled as she explained that game bosses have 3 phases and become stronger. Wooloo pondered her words, wondering how the bosses of the Silent Kingdom were different. Chi-Chi said sadly that the monsters of the Silent Kingdom use their full power from the very beginning. If it were like in games, human casualties would be much lower. She was glad that her brother had once lived in another world. But the scene returned to the 2-horned monster boss surrounded by purple energy, radiating a terrifying thirst for murder. Wooloo instantly focused, ready for battle. He lunged forward, swinging his sword, but the monster deftly dodged his attack. Strangely, their swords had been switched. The main character slid low and finally stopped behind the boss, but his eyes suddenly widened in surprise. He noticed that after the phase change, the boss was moving slower, and its weak spots were more visible. Wooloo wiped the blood from his face and realized that this was a rare chance that he must not miss if he wanted to win. The battle reignited. The protagonist dodged again, and the monster swung. The monster delivered a slashing blow, but Wooloo dodged it. He jumped up, pushing off the monster's skull. His main goal now was to hit it on the head, but the guy was ambushed by bone spikes flying like arrows. Wooloo was greatly surprised by this turn of events and blocked almost all the arrows with his dagger-wielding hand. But suddenly his shoulder was pierced, and blood gushed out. Clutching the wound, he dropped to his knee, cursing himself for opening up and falling for the trick of his weak spot. The monster pressed on, but Wooloo was able to dodge the blow. Then the guy rolled behind him. Finally, he plunged his sword into the back of its head. The bones began to shatter in an instant, and he smiled, satisfied. However, the monster was not so simple. The main character's eyes widened, because the creature responded with a deadly blow that sent him flying. The main character rolled along the ground for a couple more dozen meters from the blow. His body trembled, shocked that bones could move so smoothly and change shape. An unprecedented change. Pale and sweaty, he felt that his ribs were seriously damaged and that victory was slipping away. The monster roared, attacking with fierce intensity. This could be the end of the protagonist's life. Fortunately, Wooloo dodged, muttering about the last technique he had been hesitant to use. But now he realized that he simply could not die here. Unwilling to lose, he shouted, determined to take back Chi-Chi's sword. The battle flared up again, swords clashing furiously. Wooloo was thrown back. His sword fell out, his body hitting the ground. The fox nearby watched in shock. The monster loomed over him again, ready to end the battle. It swung its leg over the main character. Then it stomped down hard, breaking his hip. Wooloo groaned in pain. The monster laughed wildly, the sound of which made the blood run cold. Sharp bone fragments flew out of his back like bullets toward Wooloo. At that moment, the fox suddenly appeared. The main character watched in shock. He lunged forward, sinking his teeth into his enemy's neck. The monster swung to grab him, but he couldn't do it with his hand. Then bone arrows flew toward them and immediately pierced the poor little fox. Wooloo, seeing this scene, rose in a rage and seized the opportunity to snatch the sword from the monster's hand. Finally, the sword was in his hands, and now he could do something meaningful. He rushed behind it, raising his sword to finish it off. A precise blow severed its head. Finally, the sword even flashed with a blue aura, and the main character's eyes began to glow red, and the monster collapsed. But then, Wooloo, exhausted, sat down, gasping for air. Looking at the fox, he whispered a question, asking if it had returned to repay him for saving it. A virtual interface appeared, informing him that he had received 2 pieces of white jade bone. It also warned that the main character would die from blood loss in 30 minutes. Blood immediately gushed from his mouth. He covered his mouth with his hand, but couldn't stop the flow. The core still hadn't appeared. Fire blazed ahead. He sighed, not knowing what other stages awaited him. His hand glowed faintly, and he coughed. He regretted that he couldn't save himself to rest. The fox lay flat, making quiet sounds. Hearing this, Wooloo turned, sat up, and thanked him for his help at a critical moment. The fox raised his head, cooing softly. He reached out to stroke him, but stopped. Guilt washed over him because of his helplessness. He apologized for not being able to heal him, saying that he had to survive on his own. Suddenly, the fox grabbed his hand with its front paws, making sounds as if responding. Chi-Chi's words echoed back. In the silent realms of rank A and above, many creatures understand human speech. What rank was this realm? The fox stood on its hind legs, pointing at the bones and making continuous sounds, urging Wooloo to take a closer look. The fox stood with the bone in its hands, weak. But then he bit off a piece of bone, stunned, healing so quickly as if he had not been injured. A glowing bone appeared in Wooloo's hand, a white jade bone. He realized that by eating it, the fox would be completely healed. The fox nodded in response. Amazingly, he could see information about its skills. A red bar appeared. He pointed at it, asking if the fox could see it. The warning about blood loss was clear. The fox panicked, letting out repeated cries. Clear confirmation. The fire spread and the fox ran quickly, but stumbled and fell, crying pitifully. He looked back, signaling for him to follow. Wooloo understood. Outside, the chaos intensified. Wooloo curiously asked the fox why he had brought him here. The fox stopped in front of a deep pit. Inside lay a shining green gem. He grabbed the gem and returned to Wooloo. He placed it right in front of the protagonist and squeaked again, then knelt down. Wooloo examined it, noticing a strange symbol inside. The fox jumped on him, crying insistently and telling him to take it. Wooloo held the gem, gently telling it to calm down. A notification appeared. The status of the City of Fire has been saved. Return possible in almost 7 days, which shocked him. He looked at the fox, asking where he got the item with the save point. The fox just smiled faintly. He smiled, thanking the creature for helping him escape death. As he prepared to leave, he hoped to meet again. The fox was very surprised. The blue panel confirmed his exit from the Silent Kingdom. Unwilling to part, the fox clung to him, tears welling up in its eyes, and whimpered plaintively. He pointed at the panel with hope in his eyes. When asked, he readily confirmed that he wanted to go with him. Wooloo's gaze became serious. He lowered his gaze, explaining that the monsters of the Silent Kingdom could not leave. But the fox refused to let go. He clung on, despite warnings, and his tearful eyes made Wooloo warn him clearly that leaving meant death. Still, he held on tightly, squeezing him. His stubborn cuteness reminded Wooloo of how Chi-Chi would pout when begging for ice cream. Finally, he relented, allowing him to follow, warning him of the consequences. He jumped happily, forgetting that he walked on 4 paws. The fox jumped onto his shoulder. The main character looked at him tenderly, and then he confirmed yes on the panel. A pink glow enveloped them, activating the Great Escape skill. A note appeared. This skill allows you to instantly escape to any desired location. The next use would require almost a year. Returning to the real world, Wooloo collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. Without opening his eyes, he fumbled for his phone and took it out. He put it to his ear and urgently called Li Jing-an and the doctor. Fox sat nearby, cooing anxiously. Wooloo glanced at him, smiling weakly, surprised that he was still alive. Seeing him fading away, the fox cried out in alarm. The phone slipped from his hand. The fox climbed on top of him, panicking when the main character passed out. The scene shifted to another building. The main character slept on the bed with the fox, while his friend played on the phone sitting on a chair. Finally, Wooloo opened his eyes and weakly called out to the creature. Seeing the fox cub nearby, he told it to hide. Li Jing-an immediately started shouting, relieved to see that he was conscious. He repeatedly asked about Wooloo's health, not noticing the fox next to him. Apparently, only the main character could see it. Wooloo said he was hungry. Li Jing-an laughed, noticing that he had slept all day. He said that the porridge was ready, it just needed to be heated up, and left the room. Turning gently toward the fox, he saw it bark happily. So everything was fine. The main character nodded, satisfied, then asked the fox about his plans for the future. The fox eagerly chimed in. Wooloo smiled wearily, saying that the little one wanted to follow him, without knowing why. After thinking and petting the little one a little more, he came up with a name for his companion. Chi-Chi would surely like it. He chose the name Pi, just like the fox cub had been squeaking all this time. The fox happily agreed. Suddenly, Li Jing-an came in, surprised, and asked who he was talking to. Wooloo shook his head and said he was talking to himself, whispering his thanks for the help. Li Jing-an laughed, dismissing the formalities. He put food in front of the main character, and he put it right on the fox cub pie's tail, which made it squeal even louder than before. The sudden noise from the fox frightened Li Jing'an, who asked what it was. After a while, he became serious. He said that the doctor had confirmed that Wu Lu had lost a lot of blood. Wu Lu needed complete rest. When asked why he went alone, he shrugged, saying he was used to it. Li Jing'an shook his head, saying that thanks to Wu Lu's supplies, the Seven Dragons Alliance had prospered, but someone was secretly investigating. Wu Lu found this strange, as the materials were ordinary. Li Jing'an explained that the large quantities had attracted attention. After thinking about it, he wanted to hire more people. Unemployment was high, and working in the Silent Kingdom supported livelihoods. He wanted to provide opportunities. Wu Lu agreed. Li Jing'an planned to open stores to spread the word and create jobs. He planned 4 stores with 8 employees and began preparing the Alliance headquarters. Wu Lu was surprised. Li Jing'an confirmed the need for a base, and the location was already awaiting inspection. With ambition, he sought to expand the business to reduce dependence on materials and Wu Lu. Without criticizing, he was concerned that Wu Lu would overwork himself. Wu Lu agreed to reduce his workload. Wu Lu fully supported him, encouraging Li Jing'an to follow his vision. Li Jing'an was enthusiastic but needed guidance, having no experience in business. Wu Lu didn't have any either. He suggested trading materials, information services, and refining the initial plans. Wu Lu opposed intelligence gathering due to a lack of connections, an area dominated by Datong. Li Jing'an agreed, avoiding dependence on the family. Wu Lu emphasized the need to establish independence. He changed the subject, considering the sale of materials impractical. Datong had long dominated this field, with extensive networks and a strong reputation. Wu Lu acknowledged the strength of their rivals. Li Jing'an was at a loss, searching for a new path. Li Jing'an was surprised by the low opinion of employment. Wu Lu explained the weak connections. Wu Lu suggested that the Investigators Association could help bridge the gap in connections. Li Jing'an was shocked. Wu Lu said that the social consequences of unemployment had forced the association to pay attention, but Li Jing'an was skeptical, as they had never taken action, and Wu Lu noted that no one dared to bear the losses. Wu Lu explained that labor markets had flourished before the Silent Kingdom, but had now shrunk. The Silent Kingdom's resources had advanced science, but had not replaced the power of investigators, leaving many unemployed. Li Jing'an agreed. Unemployment had risen after the spread of the Silent Kingdom. Wu Lu said that low profits and high risks discouraged participation. Li Jing'an countered that commissions were possible. Wu Lu parried that direct hiring did not require intermediaries. He acknowledged that street job advertisements attracted applicants without intermediaries. He sighed, wondering whether it was worth engaging in unprofitable activities. Li Jing'an said firmly that after he returned and had no skills, he realized that helping others find hope through work was his calling. Grabbing Wu Lu's hand, he confessed that he was a dreamer and a little crazy. Wu Lu gently interrupted him, admiring his ideals and saying that Li Jing'an's heart was greater than his own. Li Jing'an, elated, took this as Wu Lu's recognition. Wu Lu wondered why it mattered. Li Jing'an, delighted, asked to have the praise recorded, the first he had ever received. Wu Lu refused, but spoke warmly, urging him to rest after caring for him for so long. Li Jing'an felt normal. He suddenly remembered an urgent matter, intending to share important unreported news. With a serious expression, he said that the 7-star base had been attacked. Wu Lu, stunned, asked when. Li Jing'an confirmed that it had happened last night. 3 men in black attacked and blew up the rooms without saying a word. At that time, only Fischl was at the base. Her presence prevented complete destruction. Wu Lu frowned, puzzled. Li Jing'an did not know the details, but he had heard that these people were connected to the group that had fought against Wu Lu's brother. Wu Lu, enraged, mentioned the Saints, noting that they were targeting not only the 7 stars, but other bases as well. The motives were unclear. Li Jing'an sadly said that the enemies had been repelled, but Fischl had been seriously injured. Despite orders, none of the 7 stars had returned to help. Wu Lu sternly asked what his brother had seen. Li Jing'an said that there had been no news of the attack, either publicly or internally. He confirmed that all data had been erased, emphasizing the role of the 7 stars as public support. Its loss would deeply shock everyone. Jing'an furiously denied that they were former allies, saying that they had boldly sworn to crush the 7 stars. Turning to Li Jing'an, Wu Lu ordered a private intelligence team to gather all data on internal and external forces, even seemingly useless information. Li Jing'an hesitated but agreed to try. Wu Lu promised a secret source, but warned against excessive dependence. He added to come up with a plausible explanation for his brother as the security systems were changing. This shocked his friend and partner. The scene shifted to a room. There, in one of the windows, stood the main character with a fox on his head, calmly drinking water. But a suddenly appearing girl with large forms in the window frightened him. Wooloo, surprised, asked how many people were there. The girl said there were only 18. Wooloo frowned, noting the picturesque view, and ordered her to continue watching. She teased that falling would mean death, and she climbed inside. Wooloo asked how she could joke about death. She laughed, wanting to surprise him after her long absence. He teased that her fall would be a real shock. She laughed loudly, teasing Wooloo's physique by touching his chest. He angrily warned that he would throw her off if she didn't stop. She pretended to be angry, remembering how Wooloo used to affectionately call her little sister Fei-Fei, blaming him for his change, and calling him such a cold and insensitive man. Wooloo coldly said that she'd better go downstairs to calm down. She quickly changed the subject, urging him to forget the jokes and have a serious conversation. She asked about the meeting with Manhwa. Wooloo confirmed that he was busy. The girl said that he couldn't come, with the commotion at the Investigators Association, and Manhwa, as chief secretary, had to deal with it. She complained that she was worried about her brother. Wooloo doubted the problem's impact on headquarters. She narrowed her eyes, hinting at a hidden reason. She crossed one leg over the other and squeezed them tighter. What a fan service. She asked why Wooloo had brought them home, unlike last time. Was he in love with her? Wooloo said outright that it was for the skill books. She asked about the terms of the deal. He calmly offered intelligence related to the void in exchange. She questioned its low value, saying that even Wooloo wouldn't make her take a loss. The guy frowned, revealing that the intelligence was related to the strategy of the recurring void, asking if that was enough. The red-haired Fei-Fei tilted her head in shock, doubting the seriousness of Wooloo's words. The guy seriously confirmed the truth and value. Unprecedented. But still, for the girl, it seemed insufficient for trading. Wooloo nodded, offering access to methods of entering the void to increase the value of the deal. She frowned, demanding specific details before agreeing. And then the main character realized that she had taken the bait, remembering his last conversation with the fox. Recently, Wooloo had asked PP to bring people into the void. The fox yelped in confirmation, and he nodded, satisfied. The protagonist asked how many he could bring, and PP chirped happily. Wooloo explained that the zone had 2 levels, accommodating up to 8 people for multiple entries, offering 7 places. She was surprised and asked how many books he wanted. He said 1 per person. She laughed mockingly, saying that his demand was more like robbery than trade. Wooloo countered that multiple entries and high profits made it worthwhile, even without skill books. If she refused, there would be other competitors.